look at this. Look at this.
You should try it.
Yeah, you missed a lot.
The whole new setup over here.
Oh, that too, yeah.
You missed a lot of meetings.
I missed 2 meetings.
I know.
Missed 2 meetings.
What happens? You walk over to 2 meetings, look at this.
Closing all places.
I fence you guys in. We're scared of you guys.
Yeah.
You wonder why?
State requirement.
The recording's on and the camera's on.
Okay, so you should wear it like these.
Sure, it's good to know.
It's for the court. Most of them already have it. Right. Because they already no, so they bring it out. They bring it out.
We had 2 groups here, the seniors and the builders. And I got up and I said, where do I fit? You're not a senior.
You're looking well, your senior was.
You see this guy?
Look at this guy.
It's not clean.
Like Glenn and me are the only young ones around here. Destroying the evidence. It's not the same. Destroying the evidence.
I'm not sure. I hope it's taking it all the way down. But that's not, you don't put that thing all down.
Ah,
Welcome to Lakewood.
that's good lighting.
So welcome to Lakewood.
Thank you. I live in Jackson, by the way.
I said, welcome to Lakewood.
Yeah, I'm ready to start. I'll pledge allegiance right now.
Oh, it's sweet.
The big storm.
Yeah.
Did you hear
My daughter was
it?
asking if I want to be home soon. I was like, maybe. I just set up a live feed to the video. So you can watch me. Yeah.
Anybody else come? Engineers do that. Engineers do that.
I keep watching on the part though.
That's it. I don't know how to do that. No, they're not. I'll be on the same thing. Nobody wants to just adjourn this meeting? What are you talking about? How's it bleeding?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Yeah.
You go?
I've been there a couple months ago. I saw Jackie maybe 6, 7 years ago.
Hey, Adam? Adam's gonna, he's probably at home.
He's one of the guys. Adam was in the hallway, he was here. Here it is. Mock bread. Well, they can spend everything for price, you know? You know what I mean? They have a limited, I mean, they have a limited amount, not everything, but.
And he is available for next week. That date is
So Commons is not here today? Yay.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's right.
Mr. Nasty, I did get confirmation he's available, and that's on our next meeting, it's April 10th, it's not available the following morning, which is the 24th.
Yeah. There's a neighborhood, they said.
Michael, what are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Several
Yeah, good. Come around, spoke.
It's not true yet.
This one, I think we're
Yeah.
That's the truth, and not the resolution. It's not true.
I have some problems also. How's your dad doing?
He's good, thank you.
Right?
It's a dangerous situation.
Dad, Imam? Are they going to Spain?
Which again?
Base of Rome. It's a resolution, it's a resolution.
It's a resolution, right?
The resolution is not.
The guy remember? Yeah, okay. What happened?
There was some testimony about the traffic patterns on that happening there.
Where's it at?
I'm not getting out,
Which one? Been around a long time.
You what? Which one? The what?
Spoke with the chairman about trying to prioritize what we
Which
hear.
chart
and what we
too?
don't hear. And we shuffle the agenda around
Which
based
one?
off of that.
Okay.
Number 4.
Okay, well, to put them before number 3.
Okay.
What was that? What?
What's number 3?
Kitty King.
Okay, no. The what?
Terry's going back all the way to Old Bridge, and he's gotta be here for the whole meeting, so we're all dealing with it. There you go. As long as you want to wait till about 9:30 when we're done.
Look at that, the last page. Last page is that.
Stop being rude to me.
No, you should have put it.
Stop being rude.
It's number 10.
Stop being rude to me. You can carry it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there was a question about the applicant's engineer in the email that said things need to be accepted minor.
Oh, yeah,
So that it's going back to Terry. So I put it on the agenda and said this isn't going to be carried. And then you guys said, no, actually it's minor. So you heard, I was asking to go back because the public's going to say, so that.
You remember that one? The guy yelled out from the gallery?
No, so we're trying to be a flood on that
What they could do is they could have a two-color.
Available next meeting, April 10th, is not available.
That's a question.
I just want to do color.
That's a question.
You color.
No, I tried to because I went to he's not gonna have
I mean, I've been hired several times, but it's not your fault. Okay. That's what happened in this conversation with Terry today. Terry told me.
It's something like that. So, you know.
They will both be on the test side. Anything that announcing, yeah, noticing that Terry. Yeah. I mean, Vincent, go forward, that would be great. Okay.
Just quietly sitting here in the back. The weather, and nobody gives a shit. Everybody loves it.
Have they already?
No, I got a call.
I mean, they got the schools on.
Yeah.
So I recommend that they check us.
They're building. The application says the architectural. Definitions, I don't know. I haven't had this. I sound good. I think it was challenging.
You submit plans for single family house? The plans for proposal for.
We just lost the whole application in that 15 minutes.
Yes, proposal. Maybe people just give up and go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything's done.
There was a motion to approve all.
Basically, this is
That's Terry just saying 195.
he started out as
I think he was just checking like 195, so he should take that as
change the plans to
No, I got it.
For what? They know what it's like. Fine, kids are home.
Yeah, that's what I always tell my coworkers that. I'm like, well, there's no school tomorrow, so I'll definitely be in the office.
I'll be in the office. Next time the press conference, the Lazio shut down the whole school system.
Oh, really?
So people were booing. That's not like it's working good. We'll let people tomorrow. Call the meeting to order. Rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alec, could you please read in the certification of compliance?
The time, date, and location of this meeting was published in the Asbury Park Press and posted on the bulletin board in the office of the Township of Lakewood at least 48 hours in advance. The public has the right to attend this
Please be
meeting,
quiet in the audience.
and reasonable comprehensive minutes of this meeting will be available for public inspection. This meeting needs the criteria of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Grunberger, Mr. Franklin, Mr. Sable.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Here.
Mr. Herzl.
Here.
Mr. Renner. Mr. Isaacson.
Here.
Mr. Graffos. Mr. Meyer.
Here. Okay, confirmation of recording status?
Yes,
John?
recording is on, and then, webcam is on.
Okay, swear. Okay. We have a big agenda and the weather is not the greatest. We'd like to go through it as fast as we can. So everybody please cooperate and please be quiet. Memorization of resolutions.
First resolution.
Just say who can vote.
SD 2286, minor subdivision, give me just a moment. I'm doing something. Everyone except for Isaacson can vote on this one.
Okay, do we have a motion? Move. We have a second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 2.
The next 4 resolutions are, everyone can vote except for Reynolds and Isaacson.
Okay, move. We have a second. Move. All in favor? Aye.
That were all that we just read.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna go with 2330. 2230, I'm sorry,
Right.
which is everyone except.
2330.
2330.
Oh, I have a typo on my last agenda, that's all.
Okay.
More properties, it looks like everyone can vote on that one.
Move. Second, all in favor? Aye.
2311, everyone can vote.
Move. Second. All in favor? Aye.
2271, everyone can vote.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
2272, everybody except Mr. Flansbrough can vote.
Okay, with motion? Move. Second? Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
And 2315, minor subdivision. Mr. Flansbrough, Mr. Renner, Mr. Isaacson cannot vote.
Okay. So, we move it? Move. Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, just like to go through any changes to the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
1 second, please.
There are some changes to the public
Let's just
hearing.
knock it off and then we'll go.
There are a couple that are listed in italics for the bottom of the agenda.
8, 9, and 10.
Let's start with those. Number 8, SD 2320. They missed one notice on Cablevision, but out of abundance of caution, they're asking to carry to April 10th. They will provide the notice for Cablevision, already have in fact, we announced that.
Okay.
SB 2267, these were supposed to be on tonight, we did not receive revised plans. They actually came in late today. They're asking for April 10th, but I don't know that Terry's office has time to prepare a review for that date. I guess it's up to the board if they want to carry it to April 10th or make them wait. I did ask for plans by last week for April 10th, and did not receive them until today. So April 10th, April 24th.
Make it April 24th.
Maybe, yeah, I agree.
April 10th is going to be everything else that carries from tonight, so April 24th.
Right, so make it April 24th. Okay.
With no further notice, I guess, if the board's making.
Okay, Mr. Jackson will announce it.
All right, and the last one, SB 2101, Mayor Wayne Grant. There was, I know there's an objector who's frustrated, this had been carried a couple times. There's actually some doubt as to whether or not this qualified as a creeping major subdivision and would need amendments to the application and the notice. As a result of that, I noted that this was going to be carried, and then shortly thereafter, the engineer said, actually, it is a minor, we confirmed, everything's good to go, but since I had already listed it to be carried on the agenda, we didn't think it was wise to go back on that. They're also requesting April 10th, which is the next meeting in February.
Okay. So, Mr. Jackson, could you please announce 8, 9, and 10?
Members of the public be advised, number 8, 9, and 10 on today's agenda.
Just 1 second. 8 and 10, I think is for April 10th.
Yes.
And the 9th is for April 24th.
Correct.
The 9 is the 24th. Members of the public
Do
be
you
advised.
want to ask one second? Do you want to ask John if we should be carrying 10 or?
We don't have plans or applications or anything for that because we had discussed it.
Minor waiver.
Yes.
traffic area. Because it was our. It was a.
It was posted on the agenda, posted on the website, and been carried because the applicant thought, the applicant professionals thought they
They
needed
did it.
to amend the application and the notice and the plans. Later they decided that they do not need to amend them, but we'd already listed it as being
Yeah,
carried.
but if we don't have it, then it's not.
That's it.
Correct.
Right, so, number, public be advised, number 8 in tonight's calendar, SD 2320, Barry Eichenstein, has been carried and will be heard on April 10, 2018, 6 o'clock, this meeting hall, there will be no further notices. Number 9 on tonight's calendar, SP 2267, 640, James Street LLC, has been adjourned and will be heard on April 24th, 2018, 6 o'clock, this meeting hall. There will be no further notice. Number 10 on tonight's calendar, SD 2101, Myra Wainbrand, has been carried and will be heard on April 10th, 2018, 6 o'clock, this meeting hall. There will be no further notices.
Okay, and the next one, Mr. Jackson, number 7, I think the base roof and comment is you have a conflict.
Yes, I'm sorry, I just found out the name of an objector today who I can't sit on a case involving a person as an objector, so I have to step away. And I spoke to Mr. Seacare and the mayor about that, and you have to determine, what attorney is going to handle that. They'll have to come up to speed and they'll have to be addressed at the next meeting.
Okay.
I spoke to Mr. Doyle, who I know is seated here, and I also spoke to Mr. Gazarovski regarding this earlier today.
Did you want to announce if anybody's here for that?
I also spoke with, Mr. Dasty, who serves as one of our conflict attorneys. He is available for our next meeting, which is April 10th, to serve the board.
So we'll be advancing it to April 10th.
Will be adjourned for
Adjourned.
someone else should probably.
Members of the public be advised that item number 7 on tonight's calendar, SP 2186, revised roofs and cabinets of Lakewood, has been tabled tonight and will be carried and heard with no further notice to be provided on April 10, 2018, 6 p.m. this meeting hall.
Okay, the only other one, numbers.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, on that last one,
Yeah.
just to be clear,
Yeah.
that will be on only for the procedural issue as to whether jurisdiction is
Right.
for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the only other one, number 6, if we have to get to it, I have a conflict with that. I won't be able to sit, so somebody else will have to take it. Okay. Okay. Okay, number 1. Okay, yeah, Mr. Jackson, I'm sorry.
Please, let me just,
Yeah. Right.
At the end of the last meeting, Mr. Shaver came up to me regarding the application for 915 New Hampshire Avenue. It's an addition to a school. You might recall the board was going to put the applicant wanted to put a small addition on the school on New Hampshire Avenue. Mr. Sable approached me after the meeting and said he was concerned for safety, and he said he thought that the testimony from the hearing was that none of the buses would be making a left-hand turn off the New Hampshire Avenue onto this entryway on the direction.
West?
That would be on the
West.
south.
That's west.
Toward Route 7.
It's south, right, on south
Right,
side.
this is north, this would be south, southwest. Right, southwest.
It's southwest.
Southwest corner of the property.
Yes.
No, west.
It's a west, yeah.
I'm better on the boat than I am in here, so.
Okay.
Anyway, Mr. Shaver indicated to me that he was there on an emergency call, and he witnessed bus after bus after bus making left-hand turns into this driveway on the southwest corner of the property and actually hopping the curb. And he was concerned that that was a significant safety concern. He was also concerned that might have been divergent with what the board thought the facts were, because he believed that the board thought that the buses were going in and out in these northern driveways. And he asked me if there was anything that the board could do. I said I had to look into it, and I asked him to file, and I looked at it before the meeting. I also thanked Mr. Becker. I had a chance to talk to him, as well as his client, as well as Mr. Sable, and I know Sherman, I don't think he was paying close attention to he was nearby. And they have concerns with that. And the standard is that if the board thinks that there's a mistake I'll just leave it at mistake, there's other bases, but if there's a mistake as to the facts that the board was relying on, or do you think that you should reconsider something, there is authority under the MLUL for the board to reopen the matter that it has jurisdiction over, to reconsider the matter. And, I think what Mr. Sable, wants to do, he's concerned about safety, is reconsider, how this geometry, is set up, or this entryway is set up. And that's why I'm bringing that to the board's attention. I put the board up so you can look at it. This is the site plan, major site plan, Mr. Lyons, page 1 of 3, last revised. It's dated December 11, 2017. That's what we're looking at now. So I know Mr. Pfeffer agrees with that. He should have a chance to address the board if you want to entertain that. And I don't know if the board wants to reopen this, if you want to give it some more time to possibly work this out with Mr. Pfeffer and his engineer, or if you want to just come to the draft resolution and we'll adopt it at the next meeting, that it's a management, safety, and traffic concern. One of the things that we talked about was possibly putting bollards along here, which I think Mr. Pfeffer agreed to. That would be along the roadway, so the buses can't make the hard left and not the curve. We also talked about putting additional signage on this roadway, and then I didn't get a chance to say it, so everyone likes to talk. They could stipulate the Title 39 so that the police could enforce if somebody were to make a left-hand turn in, or if they were to come out this way, that they could get a ticket for careless driving and violating the site. That would be my recommendation, and the applicant has agreed to those measures. So, but Mr. Sable, I don't know what you want to do, and I don't know what Mr. Pfeffer has to say. So, Mr. Herschel, that's all I wanted to do. Thank you.
Mr. Sable? I'll say something. My concern is nothing. I really want to get the school going before the new school year. I think that's the urge over here. But there's got to be some way on the record a normal circulation plan. Now, if nobody's going to obey that, and they're going to do whatever they want, how the drivers does, and I'm not going to be a policeman. I know none of us are going to be a policeman standing over there directing traffic.
So you want to see a circulation?
I spoke to Mr. Schmocker. I asked him to provide to the board the normal on record, so we know we did the best we can. Nobody's going to be a policeman over here. Nobody's going to stand and do any of these. We can put up a balance that will help, that will make us feel comfortable. Just a normal on record. At that time when we had the application, I don't think it was included.
But you want to see like arrows to show how the traffic.
Exactly, and this is the way it was supposed to be. This is the way it was designed as safety for the kids, safety for the teachers, safety for everybody driving around there. We don't have that included. It was not included in the plans.
So what could be done with that, if the board is satisfied with that, and it's to be striped in that manner, submit that, and when you adopt the resolution, you can look at it to make sure it's all satisfactory.
I was actually going to suggest that, John, because I think the testimony was that buses are not allowed to make a left turn through that driveway, which is correct. They're not allowed to make a left turn. Unfortunately, shame on them, they are making a left turn to the detriment of the safety of the kids that they're driving. So I think that if we get a plan with showing the arrows, showing the bollards, showing adopting, the Title 39, at the same time that we can adopt the resolution in the next board meeting. I mean, for me, that suffices only because to show it. I mean, that's a circulation plan. That's what I think Mr. Sable's talking about, and we can see that before we adopt the resolution.
Mr. Taylor, is that satisfactory?
I agree.
Mr. Herschel, is that satisfactory? Is that satisfactory?
Yeah, I just want clarification. The testimony was that nobody was making a left turn into that.
And everyone's done. I'm happy to speak, and I want to give everybody the opportunity to.
Okay.
As we finish our
Right.
time.
No one was doing that. Right. So no one was supposed to be making a left turn. Okay. No, so I'm just clarifying that the buses were not allowed to be making a left turn into that entrance. They were supposed to be using the first.
They stipulated they weren't making.
They weren't.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why he brought up that.
Probably is that way. That was a mistake one time.
I can just put a few
Yes.
things.
Okay, Mr.
First of all,
Sorry.
it's been stated, is application SP 2265, Tomato Bisana.
One second, does he have to be sworn in?
No, Mr.
I'm not giving testimony.
We don't swear in attorneys to another section to tell the truth.
It goes both ways. So, again, I just want to be a couple things to add to the record. So, first of all, we're on a county road. So there was a previous application, there's an existing school on site. This received county approval. Just to be clear, as what Mr. Jackson was pointing out, as you can see, there is an angle on this roadway, this entrance already. These are people coming off of Route 70, and they, to enter the school, the cars, not the buses, turn in, make a right, and go to the school.
Only coming north. coming north only.
Correct, that's correct, and it's angled because that's what the county approved. Our testimony was, and our engineers are here as well, that basically the buses are to come in and out of these two entrances, not this. That was the testimony, and the reason being is that this was angled, that obviously nobody should be making a left turn. So and this was also a discussion at the hearing as to when it was even done. The builder was here, who testified that basically approximately a month before the hearing, it was completed. So it was fairly new. I don't think anyone's in question that that is what's on the site today. Our testimony also was we had no problem putting in do not enter or do not exit signs, whichever way the board wanted it to be. We agreed that the traffic flow should be, and the recommendation is, for buses to enter and exit from the other two entrances. The issue here is the school now is trying to expand. This is an amendment application to go ahead and expand the school. The school is trying to get open and have these new rooms open for the September school year. While we were before,
I didn't vote on last Sunday, so I'm going to.
Mr. Randall, doesn't take over.
at the last hearing, none of these issues were raised. There was significant testimony as to the road, as to the traffic, and there was no mistake. We did not make misrepresentation. Just like in any other application, when we put a do not enter sign, we cannot control what somebody ends up doing. The fact here is that the roadway has already been angled purposely, so as not to allow a bus to make a left turn into that entranceway. The board now, also, I reached out to the board to say, why isn't I haven't received the draft resolution, and I don't see it on the agenda. Now, just so the board is clear, I sent an email to the chairman and to the attorney earlier today indicating what the New Jersey statute requires from time. The point of the resolution is not to get a second chance on the application. The resolution is to memorialize what we approved. I understand Mr. Jackson indicated there was a mistake or something like that, but then that should have been reached out prior to this evening, asking me what the concern is. I would have been able to have my engineers here had no idea this was going to be coming up. He assumed let me just finish and then I'll respond to everything. So our concern now is that you want to have a new document, a circulation plan, which is not required at the time of the vote. This was, I believe, I'm almost positive, it was unanimous approval, and nobody said no. We're not trying to get anything by the board. This was, again, a county road with a county approval that's already, the sites are already there. We have no problem going back. You want us to add a ballot, another sign? Of course, we have no problem with it. However, now the problem is that now you're telling us, give us a circulation plan, come back. Now, when we come back next time, it's approaching 50 or 60 days after the approval. The law says you have to give us a resolution within 45 days. If you don't give us a resolution in 45 days, the applicant has to file a complaint where they're entitled to their fees and costs for doing so. The last thing this school wants to do is file a complaint to get what all they're asking for. We are, on the record, agreeing we will put it in ballards, and we will even go a step further. We will work with the engineer during resolution compliance to make sure if there's another item that we could do that does not require us to go back to the county to get something else, because there's not much more we can do with the county. We're going to put the ballard up, we will put the signs up, we will stick to what Mr. Jackson said regarding putting a sign that's a violation, that you'll get a ticket. Other than that, this should be no different than any other application, which you require a right turn only, a left turn only, do not enter. There is no police. This board doesn't do the policing. I understand the safety. This is a school. The last thing we want is an issue causing a hazard. However, how many more boards are we going to do it? We can't keep coming back to re-argue the same application over and over. I'm asking the board, there's no reason why, we have numerous applications tonight, there's no reason why by the end of the night we couldn't get a resolution to approve what was already approved at last month's meeting.
So Mr. I think Mr. Schmuckman knew about this a week and something ago. I think we had enough time to appear. We could have voted over here now for a resolution. That's what I thought. I don't know the exact process, how timing works. I think we had enough time. It's a very simple concept request. We had enough time to bring it up to the board. I don't know specifically you know about it, but I think Mr. Orbach knows about it, Mr. Schmuckman knows about it.
Can I just, look, I don't have, we're here now. I got a call from Mr. Pfeffer this afternoon. I've been in meetings all day. I had to come here and look at the plans. I had to talk to the board. The board cannot tell me what to do until the board meets as a group. I had to see what your evidence was. This is really the only way to do it. I don't have if he wants to go to court on the 45-day thing, that's his prerogative. I don't have any issue with this board when you think that there's a safety issue, particularly when you think that circumstances that were represented might be a little different and you want to relook at it. I don't think there's a court that would fault the board for doing that for 1 second. I understand Mr. Pfeffer's upset. I understand he's representing a client. I'd be doing the same thing, but I'm also have no trouble with what the board should do or shouldn't do here. I think what you should do is just what direction do you want to give on this, and then we should go.
Question.
What can you do to make the safest plan
So
possible?
we put forward a motion to include in the resolution new suggestion? Or is it only the resolution can only
No,
memorialize what we said?
they consented to that
To the
amendment.
boundaries.
So, I don't know why we're spending so much time on that.
Can I add something from the minutes? I'm sorry, Mr. Flansbrough. I just pulled up the minutes from the approval, and I know this is terrible, but I'll read, I think the applicant was even unclear on what was going on with the traffic on this. It does say that their engineer testified just before the builder talked about the entrance was what. The first discussion about entrances where, engineers said the buses come from New Hampshire Avenue and then enter the driveway all the way to the south, which is by the jump handle. They come across the New Hampshire side of the building where 4 to 5 buses play up, and then the next set of buses come in. So even their engineer indicated that that's how the site is functioning.
And we did clarify that later on, with testimony.
And this shows what the issue is with doing this like overnight. You have to wait for the minutes to get typed and prepared. I mean, it's not something you can do with 5 minutes. So, but the point is, there was a motion, there was a question, Mr. Flint.
Just to want to say that, I'd like to make a suggestion, and I understand Mr. Pfeffer wants to put everything on the record, which is appreciated. But I think what we should do is we're going to add bollards to that angled entrance. We're going to add signage that says "Do not enter." Period. That's it. Let them come back next time. Just add it to the rest. Just
And we're
make
fine.
it part of
We
the
have no
resolution
objection to
compliance.
that.
That's all.
And you were going to do a circulation plan. Mr. Flansbaum, and an amendment that'll show the arrows, the directions of circulation.
Yeah, so
on
put
this.
arrows.
We agreed to that, and I'd like if possible, if we can please not hold up the school, let's get the resolution please tonight. So we agreed to that weeks ago, we agreed to that last time.
I don't think we.
John, is that possible physically to get the resolution up tonight?
We can't adopt the resolution.
We can't do it.
I don't have it ready.
All right, listen, Mr. Sable says he's not only a policeman, but with all due respect, that this is being a policeman.
Can we,
agreed to the resolution, and this is going to hold up the school.
Here's a
Resolution,
question.
there was nothing that you agreed to.
We agreed to do what last time, to do
Can
what
I
we
ask
wanted.
a question, please? Can we adopt the resolution via phone poll as long as we're satisfied and we see the plan to our satisfaction? Can we do that?
Can you do what?
Can we adopt the resolution via phone poll?
Well, no, the whole idea of the resolution is you see the memorialized document in front of you and you approve it, so you need.
No, what I'm saying is if the resolution is circulated to the board, can we do that?
No,
Okay.
that's an Oprah violation.
Okay, it's okay.
Open Public Meetings Act violation.
Just checking.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to do that.
So there's no way we convene to satisfy the 45 days.
I'll have a resolution at the next meeting, and I'll send it to them in advance like we always do.
I don't think we have to
be concerned, if our attorney's not concerned about 45 days,
The law is the law, and it's fine, everyone has their entitled to their opinion. All I'm indicating here is that first time it was raised to me, I was reached out to the board to find out what the problem was. I understand Mr. Sable's indicating that he spoke maybe to the engineer of the application. I don't think he understood there wasn't going to be a resolution. Again, there's an applicant listed on the application. In the future, any concerns should then go to the board attorney, and then however
Mr.
it's
Pfeffer, it was, but I knew I could not look at the records until tonight. The minutes weren't ready. I just had to see what was going on. And Mr. Sable said he had videos. I knew we had to meet tonight. We have a motion in a second. I'll prepare Mr. Herzl is telling me we have a lot of other matters on tonight, and I can't do the resolution tonight, or I would.
I don't have anything on the agenda.
If you want to sit at a laptop and draft a resolution, I'll look at
I'll be
it.
happy to draft the resolution.
Email it to me. I'll look at it right now. We'll try to figure out if there's a way we could do it tonight. But you can't do it without the plan. Maybe we could just mark that up with a red pencil. I don't know.
You'll have a resolution from
but-
the next half hour.
You go get another copy of the plan, because that's the file copy. And
I don't need it.
Yes, and you want to make a motion?
So they'll mark up the plan and.
I need a resolution. Ally can print it. If you can type something up, type me up a template. I might be able to work on it as I sit here.
We're working on it right now. Thank you.
Email me the minutes.
Do we need a motion on that?
No, if they're going to.
Oh, you don't have any?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's in there.
They're right on the planning website.
Okay, let's go on to agenda number 1. You ready?
SC 2144 for Klein Magadi. This is an extension of a previously approved minor subdivision to create 3 lots from 2 on Miller Road and Katy Lane Drive.
Okay. Terry, do you have anything to say? It's just an extension. Just an extension.
We had, I know we had asked for correspondence as
There's a
well.
correspondence item for the same application later on in the agenda, but this
Okay.
right now is just an extension of the subdivision. Nothing has changed.
Correspondence is the way that you get to it. So what's the reason for your extension?
The extension is, we've had some difficulties getting approval from the county. They wound up requiring a road widening dedication rather than easement. We also had an error in the survey, which we'll talk about later in correspondence, which we had to resurrect, so fix. So
Is the county workable? You can.
County's done at this point.
Can we
We've
discuss-
given them the dedication.
Is the correspondence on this matter? No.
Yes.
It's on this?
It's on this particular-
Why don't we discuss the correspondence now?
Because you may deny that, but you can still consider the extension. They're separate applications, they're separate requests. If you want to take them out of order, feel free.
Okay,
And
but how long do you need an extension for?
At this point to finalize, probably about 3 months.
when would it have expired for, you know?
I don't know the date. May,
Just for a random time, hoping that's long enough.
June 20th was the date that the resolution was adopted.
Okay, so 190 days from there.
So 190 days from there would have been when it was up, so that would have been December
So it's
20th, about the first
expired
of the
at the
year.
beginning of the year, probably the first of the year.
Yeah, so I would assume it would be about a 6-month extension.
We have a motion to grant the extension move. By Mr. Flansbrough, Mr. Renner second, roll call.
Mr. Here, Mr. Sable.
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough.
Yes.
Mr. Herzl.
Yes.
Mr. Renner.
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson.
Yes.
And Mr. Meyer.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Number 2.
Second application is SB 2321 for the Old Split This is a minor subdivision, to create 4 lots from 1 by the school. Yes, for change.
Okay.
The reason it's higher on the agenda is that we have a quicker deadline for board action based on the fact that we're not requesting any variances. So we want to make sure that.
Terry, would you like to go through the report, please?
As Ally indicated, Chairman, there are no variances required. Under design waivers, there is one, and this relates to the angle of the streets and affects the ability to have center angle for the engineers on that line.
That's it?
You swear affirm testimony I give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Landline, professional engineer, professional plan.
Yeah, just please speak into the mic. We're both not listening.
We're proposing a subdivision of a parcel on the corner of East 9th Street and Park Avenue. It's currently a vacant lot, has some buildings on it in the past. It's approximately 25,000 square feet in area. We're subdividing into 2 conforming duplex lots.
What's there in it?
What's there now? It's vacant. There's some concrete left over from like a warehouse or something that was there probably 20 years ago. Sometimes they park trucks there.
Okay, so what Terry brought up in the report about the waiver, what's the waiver?
The problem is because of the sharp angle, or the angle of the
Of Park
9th
Avenue.
Street and East 9th Street, a site triangle will be calculated by ASHTO requirements, which is from the stop bar and up the road, 250 feet. It doesn't actually cross our property. So it doesn't affect the property.
I don't understand. What's required and what do you want?
It's required you draw a triangle 8 feet back from the stop bar and 8 feet back on East 9th Street and 250 feet on Park Avenue. If you draw that, it doesn't touch our property.
So we're requesting a waiver because there's no way to provide a site plan. That's the only issue.
Yes,
The
one
testimony
at a
that
time.
what you're going to testify to is that there are no site distance issues and site visibility issues relative to this orientation.
Yes, I hadn't gotten that.
So really, help me out here, I'm a little confused. Really, there should be no building here, because this should be a side triangle.
No, it's,
I'm almost stuck. Really? Do you need this for the side or don't need it? Please be quiet, notice we don't hear of him.
the site triangle is 8 feet back on East Pine Street and 250 feet up the middle of Park Avenue. It doesn't actually cross our line. That's the site. The site triangle is the little piece that's left over, one that we would have to keep clear. But since the site distance line doesn't cross our lot, and it's out in the roadway, we can't, there's no way, there is no actual site triangle on our property.
Normally, is it dangerous now with the?
No, it's a very clear, open, we're not proposing any construction anywhere near that corner.
Yeah, it's gotta be
You see
open.
up Park Avenue.
That's what I'm asking, that whole corner is.
Absolutely.
Is staying open.
Wide open.
So you have that side, the side.
You have plenty of site distance. It's just-
Trees, shrubs, anything?
Nope.
Okay. So normally, you would require what?
Normally, we would require where the site distance line crosses like a right angle of the road, it would cross an angle. So it actually touches our property. Because of this odd angle, it's out in the street somewhere.
So the site, when someone's looking, it's not gonna cross this property.
Correct.
I'm not gonna look across this property.
Correct. That's the issue. But we need a waiver of it because you technically can't provide it. We'd be trying to draw a site triangle out in the middle of the road.
Excuse me, Chairman, based upon the testimony that there are no site visibility, site distance issues, we are in support of the waiver.
Okay, thank you. What about sidewalks? You bring sidewalks on all?
Sidewalks, shade trees, utility easements, everything.
Okay, and curbside sidewalks. And the garbage will be from?
Curbside collection.
Curbside. Okay. And what kind of lot, new lot 1.03? The house goes in the triangle? The triangle sized house? And that's the building envelope.
That's the building
Oh,
envelope.
that's
It'll be
the
some
building,
type
I see,
of,
okay.
yeah, they're very large building, that actually has a very large building envelope.
It's 8,000 square foot footprint. You're not building such a big
Nobody's
house.
building, everything will comply with lot coverage.
And how many parking spaces do you have for each lot?
Each lot will get 4 parking
Four
spaces.
parking spaces. Okay. Any questions for any board members? Okay, we'll open to the public on this application. Anybody from the public would like to be heard in this application? Seeing no one, we'll close it to the public. I would entertain a motion on this application.
I make a motion to approve the application.
Okay, Mr. Flansbrough moves.
Second.
Mr. Isaacson second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes. Okay, thank you, good luck. Okay, number 3.
Number 3 is SB
A little
22.
charrette.
What is that?
Oh, we said we do number 4, but he wants to go home, he's upset.
SB 2263 is for Kitty Care and JLLC, it's a major site plan for a daycare located on East County Line Road. You will recall that they have had some previous testimony, the board had some concerns with the application, so they provided some additional information and are back again for a continued public hearing.
They're opposing attorney on this? No. Mr. Doyle, you're not here on this application.
No, there's no opposing attorney.
No opposing attorney?
Mr. Doyle, I don't know why he's up here. Mr. Doyle, you're not opposing this application.
No.
No.
Okay, 1 second.
Check our records and see who was here on the January 23rd, the last time this was heard. Everyone was here, so everyone was there.
So it's a continuation?
It is a continuation from January 23rd.
Okay, Terry, would you like to go through the report when you get a chance?
Well, this has been heard by the boards previously. going to talk about shortly, relative to parking access. One is designated layout one, where parking would be proposed within 5 feet of property line. And there's an alternative layout, which is referred to as layout two. Which we believe would not require. Well, I guess to have the opportunity
Thank you, Judge. Mrs. Weinstein.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Miriam Weinstein on behalf of the applicant, Kitty Care LLC. As I'm sure the board members recall, we came before this board a couple of months ago seeking site plan approval to construct a 2-story daycare facility on the subject lot. At that meeting, we presented the testimony of our planner, Brian Flannery, and our traffic engineer, Scott Kennel. After the testimony was presented, the board asked us to come back with some modifications, specifically to label all rooms in accordance with the requirements for licensed daycare centers. The applicant has done so. The applicant has also brought our architect, who can testify and answer any questions, any specific questions that the board members have as to the requirements for daycare centers. The board also asked that the traffic study be redone so as not to take into account road improvements to County Line Road, which may not be done before the daycare center is constructed. To that end, Mr. Kennel revised his traffic study and is here this evening to testify as to his findings. I myself visited the site one morning and was present at the site from 8:30 a.m. until 9 a.m. During that time, I never saw more than 10 cars in front of the site.
Excuse me. The attorney's really not supposed to give testimony unless you want us to put you under oath.
Fine, I won't.
Before
It's
I
fine.
jokingly made the joke about Mr. Pfeffer, the reason why attorneys aren't put under oath is because they're not witnesses, and it emphasizes the point. You can't cross-examine them, and they're advocates for their clients. So we try to
We'll skip it,
advocate
fine.
and let the witness testify. Thank you.
My client, I'm going to bring my client, Chaya Gerlitz, to testify as well. She actually did the same exercise that I was going to say that I did, and several days in a row, she stood outside and took some counts, which we will present to the board. In addition, the plans were redrawn to eliminate the variance for lot width, so there are no longer any variances associated with the application. The applicant has also met with all of the neighbors to address their concerns, and specifically the buffering, which is the waiver that we are requesting. To that end, the applicant has agreed to fencing and planting trees on both sides of their property to the satisfaction of the neighbors. At this point, I guess I would like to call Brian Flannery and ask that he be sworn.
I just have a quick question. If you change the plans and not a new application, is it a continuation? Could it be a continuation?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I was checking something.
Could it be a continuation if the plans were changed?
Yes.
They were-
I think everybody was aware of it.
They were minor changes. We removed the variance.
That's fine, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
I mean, that meeting wasn't closed and voted on, right? It was just...
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, this is-
That's very common
Yeah.
to have a revised plans and pick up from there. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony that gives before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Brian Flannery, Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner.
I'm trying to get that resolution, so if I seem tuned out, just bring me back in.
So I have 3 renderings up here. A1, which was marked last time, was the rendering of the site showing the daycare and care center and the parking in front of it. A2 is the tax map which shows our property, and at that time I detailed all the schools and offices along County Line Road down there. As Miriam indicated, we revised the plan to make the building smaller, so we no longer need a side setback variance. We have a smaller building. We provided fencing around the property to address the buffering issue. As indicated in Terry's report, we now have a conforming application. No variance is required. We have 2 design waivers. One is for the buffer, which we had discussed at the last meeting, indicated we were going to fence it. We provided the plans with the fencing. The second issue that Terry indicates in his report as far as the design waiver, the parking as we proposed it was right angle parking, and a plan was submitted showing concept layout 1 and concept layout 2. I'm hoping the board has those. Layout 1 has the right angle parking, and we have a 22-foot wide aisle. if the board is aware, normally
Which one did you show us last time?
it's more consistent with layout one.
Layout one on top, the top
Right.
one.
And the top one has 27 parking spaces, the bottom one has 22. Normally a parking aisle for two-way right-angle parking is 24 feet wide. And that allows room for both vehicles to park out without hitting a vehicle on the other side. This case is a little unique. A, it's one way. B, there's no parking on the other side. So there's an overhang on the vehicles. A vehicle backing out of that space where he has 22 feet, the rear of his car can go 2 feet further, where if we had 24 and a car on the other side, it would be the same situation. So we certainly think the more parking is better. We think layout one at a right angle is better. But the board,
The bottom picture, how wide are your aisles?
those are 24-foot wide aisles with angled parking.
With the angle is 24, and with the...
Well, the parking spaces, when they're angled, are 18, but when you turn them, it becomes less efficient. So we lose parking spaces. The bottom one would be conforming, needing no relief. The bottom one, the top one, we gain extra parking, and we need relief for a 22-foot wide aisle, which is my testimony, and we have a traffic engineer who would give you the same testimony. Miriam's going to introduce him later, that the 22 feet for a one-way aisle with no parking on the other side is more than sufficient.
Okay, so you're testifying both cars going around the building is a one-way?
Correct.
Yeah, and I think we need the parking, my personal opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I think the purpose of the suggestion of the angular parking was to see if you can gain more spots along the sides of the lot. If that's impossible?
He's losing.
That is impossible, yes.
Okay.
We actually lose parking spaces with the angled parking.
Yeah. Now, I mean, on the way in and the way out, if there was to have like 5 spots along.
No, and as you can see by the plan, yeah, there isn't enough room. The angled parking in certain situations work, where you have the right geometry. In this situation, it did not help.
I don't want to have a net loss. I think even 27 spots will just make it, you know.
Well, we're going to have further testimony indicating that the 27 is sufficient. It complies with the ordinance. It's the applicant's position that it's sufficient. The applicant's position is that the 22 would be sufficient, but the 27 is better. Well, there's other comments in the report. We had addressed them last time. I mean, we're going to satisfy Terry's comments in his report. I don't think there are any that I flagged as specifically needing any comments.
We spoke about last time that it should be a right out.
Right in, right out. We spoke about it, and again, what we said the last time is it's a county road. Whatever the county tells us, that's what we're going to do. I would expect it's going to be right in, right out. Scott Kennel, the traffic engineer, that's his expertise.
Mr.
He would
Flannery,
certainly
I'm
give
sorry, just a second. Gentlemen in the audience, if you could stop the conversations, you're echoing up here. Gentlemen, can you take the conversations outside, please? Thank you. Sorry.
On that comment, I mean, we could require it being right in, right out, not just.
Yes.
That's what we want. To make a left out of that property, County Line Road is going to be stopped totally. I mean, as of now, it's pretty heavy.
And the applicant is good with
I
that.
think that should be a condition. Okay. Well, and anything else in the report
We're going to satisfy all of the comments.
What do you think about the sidewalk currently? Are you offering the sidewalk?
Yes, we're putting it aside.
You'll need signs that write out only.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have any other testimony?
Yes,
Witnesses?
I'm going to call Kai Gerlitz,
Okay.
the applicant.
I just want to say before she speaks, Mr. Jackson's not here tonight.
I'm ready.
By the last, Mr. Frank, I'm sorry. You're here.
I'm not paying attention
I see you watching.
Yeah.
Mr. Franklin said that he lives on Somerset Avenue, and it was very heavy traffic with the old, the place where they're right currently. So that's why I'm very happy that you're adding more parking spaces. I don't want to take that over. I think the old.
I agree that that's probably the better layout.
Excellent.
Let me ask John, can you have Mrs. Gerlitz come, please?
Please raise your hand. Do you affirm the testimony you give before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah, take it back.
Chaya Gerlitz.
Okay, please speak into the microphone, speak slowly, spell your name first, and then with the chairman's, at the chairman's direction, we will give your testimony.
Chaya Gerlitz, Chayagerlitz.
You want to finish your affirm, right?
Affirm.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. Mrs. Gerlitz, first, can you just tell the board what your role is at the daycare center?
I'm the owner and director.
Okay, I'd like to hand out to the board members, John, what are we up to, A4?
Yeah.
A4, I'm going to hand it out. The board members, yes, there's that.
Can Mark one, give it in, Sally?
Okay, there's an extra one, I'll just carry it.
Is this like what you're using in lieu of a traffic
No,
study?
it's not a move.
What is it?
I'll tell you.
Just real quickly, what's your offer of proof?
This is actually a study that the applicant herself, just for the benefit of the board, so she shouldn't be giving testimony that's not accurate. She went ahead and for 3 days, she stood outside the center and took counts of the cars as they came, how many kids they dropped off, how long they were there, and when they left, just because we thought that it would be...
Okay, let me just, that's different than having a traffic engineer or a traffic consultant testify. However, I think the board can consider it. It's actual observation, it's by the operator, and I don't have any issue with that going into evidence. Yes, so that's why I don't have any trouble.
Thank you. Yeah, Mrs. Gerlitz, if you could just tell the board, did you yourself actually observe everything that's on those sheets?
Yes, I sat there for a few days, and we have 3 sheets here, which explain 3 days that I was there. I sat there, and before I did the study, I actually thought there may be more cars there, because when I would come in the morning, I sometimes would see more cars, but when I was there, I noticed that quite a few of the cars were not from us. There were maybe some neighbors parked there, or the next daycare next door would have some cars parked there. These are cars that actually were from my daycare, parents that came and dropped off their children and went in. Some of the parents did take the few minutes that it took to swipe, as we can see that they spent a few more minutes there, and a lot of the parents just went out. Huh?
HM, a second car.
How many children they dropped off? So if they were there for a few more minutes, that explains that.
And on the second page, the last column, you have 9, 10, 11.
Right, so that's when I wrote down at those times how many cars were, the total amount of cars that were seen on the road by the daycare. The maximum amount of cars that were there at any given time.
Including employees?
Including employees, yes.
How many children are now in the daycare?
Right now, there's 83 children, but at that, probably anywhere between 35 and 40 families, maybe even less, because lots of the families have 3 or 4 children.
What's the maximum you could have in the daycare?
In the new site?
Yeah.
140, 145.
Can you say that probably these numbers double?
Which number is double?
Like if you're going to have a double amount of children in the new daycare, so do we assume more cars are going to come?
I guess there might be a few more.
And how many employees do you have in the daycare?
Do I have now? Or how would I have? Between 12 and 14.
That's what you will have that's how many parking spaces you need?
Well, right now I have that as well because I just have more. It's divided differently, and like I said, the most on these papers we see there were maybe 11 or 12 parked, and so part of that was employees.
Please take your conversations outside, because you're not here.
And I do have quite a few employees that live in the neighborhood, and I actually saw them walking, and I saw quite a few come with carpool. Their husbands come, drop them off, and their husbands continue on, and they just stay at work, and then they get picked up at the end of the day.
I mean, I don't know how much, I think we don't have a choice as opposed to forming application. Johnson likes to say we're just kind of bastards. But, no, and that's the truth. But, so firstly, you're doubling the amount of people that you're going to be able to have on the site. Secondly, probably by pickup time, it gets more.
It's not double, by the way.
Almost. 70 plus that.
It's 83, and they have a maximum of 140?
Okay.
So it's not double.
Plus that.
And how long?
No, but the thing is also, when people leave, they probably will come more at once, right? I'm just guessing.
Not necessarily. Some people pick up at 3, 3:30, 4, 4:30.
I see the people are there anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes.
5 and 10 minutes, and then if you notice that there was one time that the parent was there longer, and I actually wrote down that he did a lot of swiping that day. When she came out, I said, what were you doing there so long? She said, well, I have to swipe for the last 14 days, so whatever. But that doesn't usually happen, but it can.
Also, Mrs. Garlitz, I think you had indicated at the last meeting that you were going to have a staff member who would be present downstairs to try to cut back on the time. Is that in the plans?
Yes, if we need to do that, we will do that.
It's something I would request. I want it moving as fast as possible.
Okay.
Because if you testify that you need 14 for employees, it's down to 13. I know. How's she going to enforce it? How staff members make it?
You can't enforce something like that on the plan.
Not on the plan. I'm just recommending it. So you're leaving technically 13 spots for customers who are coming. For parents who are coming, you have 13 spots. And you're testifying that I think the most that you ever had was...
The most that we had were 11, 12.
It was 12, was the most.
And part of that was the employees and the parents. They really do it quickly. I was watching them.
So your testimony is that the maximum you have is 12, even with all your employees parking over there, you're not asking for variance in parking. It works for you. 27 works for you.
And actually, I was on both sides of the road. So the one closer to the building and the one across the street, I included that as well.
So just to point out for the board, if right now what she's saying the maximum is 12 is with staff, even if we double that, we're at 24 and we have 27 parking spaces, just to bring that to the board's attention. I think that's what she's saying.
Parents who drop off, they park or they just pull in, take the kids in, and then they leave right away?
Well, they have to do a proper parking, but they take their kids and leave right away.
That's what we spoke before. We have staff members there.
Oh, then they could just drop, they'll
drop.
stand there and, take the kids out. And
Just say you don't have enough parking. You can't have people backing up on County Line Road, trying to turn in, turn out.
I think that's pretty clear that we can't do that on County Line Road, so.
At the last meeting, someone, a neighbor came from the back. Is there any way that we could help that person out, like shade? I don't remember his exact location.
Sure, we are. If you'll notice, she's not here tonight. The neighbor that you're referring to is Joni Miller, and there were two, Joni Miller and Mr. Bolter. The applicant can tell you herself that they met with both of them, and actually we even have a letter from her. We agreed to everything that she wanted. She wanted an 8-foot wooden fence, and she wanted trees.
Just want to maybe read them the things to put it into the record.
Sure.
That we took care of the concerns.
Absolutely. Again, you'll note she's not here this evening, so.
I understand, but she was pretty upset last time, so let's just put on the record what we're doing to satisfy the neighbors.
I have a letter from Dr. and Mrs. Seth Miller, actually, dated February 20th, 2019.
And she's on corner Somerset.
What?
Somerset and County Line?
Why does it say 2019? I don't know, but it does, but it really wasn't written in 2019.
Yeah, because she wants by that time, the building will be finished by then.
That's funny. I'll read her letter, which was addressed to myself. Dear Miriam, I spoke to Mr. Gerlitz today, and he asked me to set forth in letter form the tentative agreement between the Gerlitzes and us, since I do not have email. This letter in no way constitutes an agreement between the Gerlitzes and my neighbors, the Bolters, but later on we did agree to it on the telephone. 1. The Gerlitzes will construct an 8-foot wooden fence that will run the entire length of the back of our property and the Bolters' property, which in parentheses it says the side of the Gerlitzes' property. Said fence will connect the existing fences that run along the sides of our property and the Bolters' property and will match and design the existing fences. The Gerlitzes will be responsible for maintenance of the new fence and for removing the existing fence along the back of the property. I would also like for them to be financially responsible for any trees or plants on our property that may be damaged or destroyed in the process and any unforeseen drainage problems that may occur as a result of the construction. 2. The Gerlitzes will plant a tight row of high trees on their side of the new fence to block the view into our property and will be responsible for maintaining said trees. 3. The parking lot will not be lit from above and the lights will be turned off once the building is empty for the day. There is a paragraph 4. We did not agree to it. We told her we did not agree to it. This one basically asks that we close off the parking lot and block access to it at all times when the daycare is not in use. We told her it wasn't really feasible and we did not agree to that. We can certainly submit this as evidence.
It's part of evidence. I think the other 3 that you agreed, it's good on record that you agreed to it.
Yes, these 3 we did agree to.
Okay, Mrs. Gerlitz, you're okay with it?
Miriam, what was the other neighbor's name besides Miller?
The other neighbor is Balter, B-A-L-T-E-R. Al, you want a copy of this letter? You can have it.
Sure, thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you.
Mrs. Weinstein, you have any other?
Yes, I have the architect, who I don't have to call if the board has specific questions for the architect. I mean, he did come out in the snow, so maybe we should.
Yeah, I think she has.
Okay.
The only thing I just want to put on record, I know Angela had issues last time that wasn't conforming to the state statute of a daycare center.
That's why he's here.
Okay, I just want to put on record
I want to hear testimony about how they meet all the criteria, what they have to do to get their approval, that it's safe, that it's appropriate, and that they have a proper facility.
That was her questions last time.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear a firm testimony to give before the board with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please say your name.
Vincent Minkler.
Can you spell it, please?
VINCENTMINKLER.
Mr. Meckler, your professional licensure?
Yes, I am a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey.
Have you testified before this board before?
No.
Are there other boards that you have testified in front of?
Yes, Jackson and Rocky Hill.
How many times have you testified as an expert, would you say, in the last year?
In the last year, this is probably my 4th time.
And you've been an architect for how many years?
2-3 years now.
You're familiar with the design criteria that goes in for nursery schools?
Yes, the I-4. Correct.
You satisfied, Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
All right, can you please just tell the board about the facility and what amenities the facility has? And,
Sure.
And then I'm going to ask you to tell us what the regulations are and what you have to do to get the state approval so that we know that this is a safe and sufficient facility and that it has all the proper amenities that may be required.
That's required by law.
That's what I think the board is looking for.
Okay. The actual requirements is, you can find them under NJAC 3A-52, 5.3. Those are physical requirements. It's about 30 or 40 pages that go list by list through all the physical requirements of the facility. It even gets down to things like what type of garbage cans you can have in the rooms. So not all of it would fall under my expertise as an architect, but the areas that do require, a specific area for sick children. It doesn't say that it has to be a room specifically, but just an area that's designated in case a child is sick. They can be kind of almost quarantined away from the other sick children. We do provide that in our plan. We do have a nurse's station, which would be an entire room dedicated to that.
And there'll be signs on each room saying?
Yes. Yes.
It's a special room or something?
Correct. Every room will be labeled. Every daycare classroom that houses children under 2.5 years old has to provide about 10% visible area through the wall from the hallway to that classroom. We do provide that for each classroom here as well. And the means of egress from each classroom, because it's children and each classroom is going to have more than 10 children, we need to have 2 doors into each classroom, which we also do provide.
Do you have a floor plan? Can you show us on the floor plan what the amenities are?
I have a floor plan with my own notes on it. I don't know if there's
We spoke also about the playground area that has to be a designated area, I think.
Yeah, you can put up the site plan, you can staple it to the board that you have, just so you can take it through. Well, they should be part of the board's file, right?
Yes.
I don't know that we received revised architectural after the board's concerned with the last meeting.
Picture that's the most specific one. Maybe you should check our the architecturals we have,
Yes, 11/117, that's the date on the chart.
they haven't been revised since the board's concerns in January.
I was not here at that meeting, so I'm not sure what those concerns were. But we do show designated play areas, which that I-4 requirements designate.
in your testimony that your plans conform totally whatever the state requires?
Yes, the state also has its own review of a daycare facility, and they may also have comments to which we would be obligated to comply.
And you agreed to comply with
Yes,
that?
absolutely. And we states it on our plans.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, we're gonna bring the traffic engineer. Stop him.
Wait, before you step down, I just have a couple more questions for you. You know, in terms of getting the licensure, is there a state review board that you have to submit to that has to review your facility, make sure it's proper, et cetera?
Yes.
Have you gone through that process yet?
No, not yet.
In your opinion, will this meet that criteria?
Yes, if they have any comments, I'm sure that they will be very minor, and we will meet any requirements.
Can a facility like this operate without getting that kind of an approval, like be an underground facility, or somehow go without the actual state licensure?
Not
I don't know. I mean,
not anymore in Lakewood.
Right, I'm sure anybody can do whatever they
I was
want.
hoping the answer would be no, but.
Right, yeah, yes, the answer is no legally, correct.
And is there any way to get waivers from specific criteria, and will you be asking for any waivers from any specific criteria?
That's not for me, I'm just regards to the
Well,
building.
you said that your facility meets all the requirements.
Yes, it does meet all of the physical requirements, correct.
In other words, the rooms are the right size.
Correct.
You have the right number of bathrooms.
The requirements gets more specific to the actually running of the facility, which would not be within my scope of work.
Did you say what the maximum number of children that this facility can handle?
It can handle up to 145.
Are there any outdoor facilities?
No.
There is a playground, and that's outside, that's the engineer that is shown on the engineering plan.
Oh, sometimes architects will do play equipment and that kind of thing. The engineer did that?
There are play areas
Mr.
within the
Flannery,
building.
can you jump in here? Were you sworn on this case? Were you in this case?
Yes.
Can you show us where the outside amenities are?
The outside amenities are behind the building, which would be in the southerly area. And the revised site plans that were submitted showed the fenced-in area and called it out as the play area, and that complies with the regulations that he specified for as far as square foot per child.
What will the surface be?
It'll be,
Is it wood chips? Is it some kind of spongy material? Is it grass?
grass and spongy material, a combination of them.
All right. And do you have a specific, what's the word, like the toys that kids use that are built into the ground? I don't know.
There's no playground equipment proposed at the time. The operators of the facility will have toys that they'll bring out with the kids and take them.
I think the applicant can answer most of these questions. She can also answer your.
I'm satisfied as long as.
You're satisfied, okay.
You stipulate.
Question on the record.
Sure.
The playground surface is going to be the applicable ASDF standards.
Yes.
I have a question, Chairman.
Yeah.
What age kids are we talking about?
Let's bring the applicant back here.
Speak into the mic.
What age are the kids?
Newborn to 5.
Newborn to 5?
And just what we was talking about before, licensing has come down to us where we are currently, and they are very strict with what they want. They cite us for the silliest things, in my opinion. So definitely, we have many things that we need to conform to.
Do they grant waivers?
Not really. They'll come back again and again until they're satisfied.
How many
If
people?
not, you don't get funding.
Huh? If not,
You
we're going
don't get funding. Okay.
Do they have like inspections and checks and?
all the time. All the
How
time.
often did you say they come down to inspect?
Well, it depends. They come initially, and then if they're not happy, whatever the citation is, they may come back in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks, and they will keep coming back until they're satisfied.
Thank you.
In the classroom or in the
In the classroom.
And Mr. Chairman, thank you for the indulgence. I just know
Angelo.
Mr. Garofalo's had a lot of concerns. I want to try to make sure that all those were addressed.
Ms. Wines, just a traffic engineer.
Yeah, actually, just before I call the traffic engineer, I just want to put on the record that David Schreiber testified at the last hearing, and there were certain items that he had wanted. He was the neighbor with the pool. I just want to make sure that that gets into the resolution and on the record.
It's a continuation.
It is a continuation.
Yes, sir.
He's in the audience, and I just, he doesn't need to get up and speak again because he was already.
But you agree that everything that was said on the
Yes.
first meeting, we agreed?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, Scott Kennel.
do you swear firm testimony to before the board will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please spell your name.
Yes. Scott Kennel, Kennel, with McDonough and Ray.
And your profession?
Qualifying as a traffic expert.
And Mr. Chairman, you recognize Mr. Kennel based on his experience?
And you did a great job.
Thank you.
You're bringing it down from F all the way down to C.
C, there you go. So that obviously did something good.
If you can describe for the board the
Yes.
findings and what the new report says it's different than the old one.
Right. The revised report dated February 21, 2018 took in consideration the board's suggestions for a right-in, right-out driveway. The analysis revealed that it operated level service C for exiting movements onto County Line Road. I just want to follow up as part of the revised report. I also conducted observations at the existing facility from 8:30 to 9 a.m. in the morning, and my data collection is consistent with what the operator had presented as far as turnover, number of vehicles, and the operation as far as anywhere from 1 to 3 children per vehicle.
Your testimony, you feel that there's enough parking for this property and will work?
Yes, and my recommendation, as was with Brian's, is that we should go with the plan with the maximum parking spaces with the right angle parking spaces, and that the 22-foot aisle width is adequate to accommodate safe movement in and out of those parking spaces, given the fact that vehicle overhang, that aisle effectively will operate as a 24-foot wide aisle, which is a standard aisle width. The other aspect that it's a one-way circulation, that's a positive in promoting that as a safe operation. And it's a high turnover, as was indicated, and based on my observations. It's my opinion that the parking will be adequate to support the development. And as was just to qualify too, as far as the increased enrollment, that represents approximately 75% increase in students. So that's the demand, parking demand will be increased by that amount, which can be accommodated with the parking provided.
Any questions? No. Any board members have any questions?
So does the ingress and egress operate at level C, or is County Line Road also trial level?
It's the right turn movement operates level service C. And based on the comment earlier, as far as having the driveway operate efficiently as well as internal circulation, the fact that there's only right turns only will make that much more efficient and from a parking lot and parking activity standpoint.
I saw in your report that when the county will add the turning lane, they'll bring up even up to level A?
No, the turning lane.
The turning lane would be a level A.
A left turn in would be a level service A.
We request a curb at the beginning of the property to be changed instead of being a circle inward, outward, so avoid people making a left turn.
We can, in addition to having the signage, we can modify the driveway design so that it promotes the right turn movements in and out.
Both and in will be in a certain direction and out the same direction, so you can.
Correct. And all that's going to be subject to Ocean County review and approval as far as the design and the signs that will be put in place.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from any board members?
Yeah, I have a question regarding the parking lot. So, you read in the letter before from the neighbor that she requested that the parking lot be closed after hours. But why can't you comply with that? Why can't you put one of those bars or something, just closing up the parking lot after hours? You said you can't comply with it, but why not?
What do you mean by a bar? A gate on
Yeah, one of those gates.
A gate on the parking lot?
Yeah.
Any gate that you put in there would have to be located at least
I'm just asking.
50 to 100 feet into the site. So you still have access to it because you don't want someone that's entering that's going to lock the gate, sitting blocked in the traffic on County Line Road.
I think that you said that you're not going to be using it at night, and you can have a gate blocking any lights.
Correct. I think as Scott said, if that would be down and the parent would show up before the owners get there, where are they supposed to go on County Line Road? They're locked out and they can't even get in the morning. It doesn't really make sense. And then they're going to block traffic on County Line Road, which is just why we just don't think it's productive. It doesn't make that much sense.
And the neighbor agreed to it?
The neighbor agreed.
I mean, she's not here. Right? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would open up to the public. Anybody from the public would like to be heard on this application, please come forward. Seeing no one, I would entertain a motion on this. Would ask for a motion on this application.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Based
on whatever was
stipulated.
Whatever was stipulated in the agreements with the neighbors.
I'll be
Both
certain
ways.
to put in there that the applicant will comply with all state regulations and comply, and, you know, get all the permits, et cetera.
And two things, also, what was said last time, at the last week, from Mr. Schreiber, the agreement with Mr. Schreiber will be included, and the agreement that she has now with Mrs. Miller, can you say, will also be, whatever they agreed, the first three things. Okay, second. Okay, the curb.
Yeah, but
the curb also.
Both sides of the curb out.
You have that, Mr. Jackson, the curb?
Yeah, we'll make sure, I'll get it out in the minutes and that'll.
Okay, so Mr. Miranda makes, moves, Mr. Flanston seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
No.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you for going the extra step, meeting all the neighbors, and trying to make a better application. It's a tough situation, but went through it. They fixed everything. Thank you very much.
Hopefully it'll be a wonderful facility.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for your good guidance.
Number 4. How's the weather outside? We still go? Stop now? Okay, who's number 4?
John, can I get a recommendation? Looking for a legal recommendation.
I think we should stay here and finish the whole year's calendar since we're snowed in.
Okay, please leave quietly. We can continue. Okay, Mr. Jackson, I was just notified, number 6, I said I have a conflict, and I cannot sit on it.
And I said, he has a conflict on that.
Mr. Rand said he thinks he has a conflict also on that one, so we do not have a quorum on that night.
So that one should be,
Number 6.
adjourned, number 6.
I don't know if anybody's here for that.
Mr. Corlin is, but I don't know if the representative
One
is
second.
not here.
Adam Pepper's the attorney.
You want to speak with him and let him know there may not be a quorum and talk to him in a second, please?
Sure, I'll grab him.
Thank you. You want me to announce the next one, or do you want to talk to?
Yes, but I'm sorry.
Announce the next one or speak to Mr. Fessler?
Well, you can speak to him, I don't think that, anything you can do if we're both included.
The next one should only take 5 minutes anyway.
Okay. You want to announce number 4?
Ally, can you do it?
That's 4279AA, for the Chuckle, Kingview site plan exemption for a house on the Seaside Water.
Okay. Just 1 second. I'm sorry, Brian.
No problem.
I have a conflict with number 6. And
First Street,
It's what?
Yeah, First Lakewood Park.
First Street, thank you, so I'll make sure.
And Mr. Renner just said he may also
He
have a
told me
conflict.
who owned the property, so now I feel like I shouldn't be bothered.
We don't have a quorum. I'm just going.
So can we carry that one, make the announcement now, because everyone's here?
And when could we?
Discuss jurisdictional concerns without a quorum?
No.
No?
You can discuss it, but it doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
What is it?
The jurisdictional concern is that this is the applicant that is making use of the new zone map that was adopted in December, but not making use of the rest of the ordinance from December, which now requires parking above the second floor in the B2 zone.
Right, so just as a procedural, just as a little background on this application.
Well,
Found-
you shouldn't address that to
Oh,
the
no
chair.
problem, no problem,
Mr. Herzl's up there, Mr. Renner's up there, so.
That's
Stop
totally
now,
fine.
we can't vote, we won't have a
Yeah.
quorum.
So can I just ask that at the next meeting,
Why don't you just state what your issue is so they can think about it and hear it from you?
sure,
And
no problem, that's what,
Mr. Herzl, Mr. Renner,
Please,
you
at the
should-
next meeting,
make sure Mr. Franklin says somebody would chair the weekend.
Okay, yeah, but the next meeting, whoever's gonna be sitting on the application is not gonna hear what Mr. Pepper has.
Yeah, why don't we just wait, because
If I can actually, can I send you a memo?
Send me a memo, I'll forward it to the board.
This way the board has it, what the issues are.
I don't understand how you could want part of the ordinance and not the other. I mean, if you're in.
Very big explanation, but I'll put on the record now if you want.
Submit a memo, that would be the most efficient.
The application was submitted before.
This real quick, I'll just do it now. The application was submitted over a year ago. The issue was, this goes back to when we had the old tech hearing, we had the tech hearing approval. There was another application that was similar, was also trying to use the same condition. An issue was raised that there was an error in the township tax map. Everyone knows there was an error.
Zone map.
Zone map, thank you. On the zone map, which everybody has to go by. However, everyone acknowledged that there was a clerical error that was never fixed. The township was in the process of fixing it. They were going to put on an ordinance to adopt a new zone map. However, at the same time, they said, oh, you know what, we're doing the master plan, we'll just put it all together in one thing over there. We tabled our application because we needed jurisdiction to obviously to go forward because we feel we're in the right zone. And we said, fine. They fixed the error in the new map that was adopted in the master plan. So again, I'm not trying to cherry pick which parts we want of the master plan. But the zone map, which was a mistake and has been acknowledged, and we were trying to avoid, as I said before, I don't like going to court.
Before you were all for it.
No, I said I don't like to, but I had a choice. So I had no choice, again, on this issue.
I'm only kidding.
I know, but the township indicated they're fixing it, so just hold off. Our position was we didn't want to withdraw because in case they made a change, then there'd be time of application where we would lose it. So that is the issue. I will put that in clearer words in a memo to the board. John,
we've spoken about
I
it.
remember it was adjourned indefinitely.
It was adjourned because we waived all time periods so they could fix the zone map. That was the only issue.
It's not with Mr. Doyle, he's kind of good with this really obscure.
I always enjoy full council, especially when it's.
So anyways, on which meeting are we adjourning it to?
I'm sure they're gonna want April 10th.
At
this point, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 applications on April 10th. And I know another 2 that Terry was discussing with an applicant today, so that makes 8. This would be the 10th.
The nice thing about this application, soon we get over this little hurdle, it's a fully conforming application, no variances, nothing being asked.
No parking.
No parking.
Well, except for the jurisdictional issue.
I said, aside from the jurisdictional issue, which is being raised, it is a fully conforming application, and we'll even throw in a couple ballots.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
If you make an announcement, John,
And Kirk.
I'll make the announcement, I'm working on your resolution.
Oh, I'm working on it as well.
I'm almost done.
Okay.
You work faster than I do?
April
guys
10th,
gotta hear
I
about
think it's not reached, it's gonna get carried.
One announcement?
Sure. Members of the public be advised, number 6 on today's calendar, application SB 2210 for First Lakewood Forest Associates has been tabled. The board does not have a forum tonight. The application will be heard and open at the next meeting on April 10th, 2018, 6 p.m. This meeting hall, no further notice will be provided.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As soon as possible. And I'll just stick around and finish up the other item.
Okay, Terry, would you like to go through the report?
We're talking about.
We're going back to
Goldman application.
Goldman, yes.
SB 2279 indicating a letter. This is a change in use with no site improvements currently proposed. As indicated in our letter, design waivers are required, including sidewalk, parking within 500 feet of property line, provision of shade tree utility easement, landscaping, trash, recycling storage, and then some area zoning. We have existing non-conforming with regard to lot area, and perimeter buffer is necessary, as well as parking within 20 feet of the residential.
Just my opinion, before we vote on these design waivers, I personally like to hear the application. Because,
Typically don't vote on design waivers, but a submission waivers.
oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Mr. Jackson.
You swear from testimony before the board the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do. Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer, professional planner. The application's indicated is for a change of use site plan. There's an existing residential structure that was constructed many years ago. The applicant intends to use it as a shul. The relief that's indicated are for existing lot areas. The parking that's proposed, the shul sanctuary is 598 square feet, which by ordinance we need no parking for. 7 parking spaces are existing. It's a neighborhood shul with no simcha hall. It's a congregation that wants to pray there. They're providing 7 parking spaces where none are required. The design waivers are for existing situations. The perimeter buffer relief with parking is already there. To me, it's an application that years ago you didn't even have to come to the board, but a few guys didn't do it the right way and tried to sneak things that were bad. So now everybody has to come. We're here saying we have a building that works. It's inherently beneficial use, and we're respectfully requesting the change of use.
The way you calculated the net square footage, you didn't take into account it's just the total space, the open space, right? You didn't take into account the BEMA and everything else.
Right.
Because we don't want to hear that anymore, right? So you just take the whole space.
And we could take into account almost the whole house, and with 7 parking spaces, we're there anyway.
Okay, so in other words, it's not like you have 900 square feet, but you're saying 300 square feet is going to be BEMAs and bookshelves and everything else. It's the total square footage is what you present. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Brian, the new master plan, the new ordinance, anything under 800 still doesn't need any parking?
The new ordinance that was adopted by the town did not change the parking requirements for the shul.
They never adopted that.
That part was never adopted by the town.
Where's the parking spot? They're not requiring it.
1 second. Okay, you can answer that.
The parking spots are 4 in the driveway to the south and 3 in the driveway to the north.
So they're stacked?
Yes.
So they're not really.
Ron, according to your testimony, even if you need 1 parking space for every 100 square feet, you only have 600 square feet, so it's 7 should suffice.
Yes.
It's not really 7 though. It is 7, but it's like 7 sort of.
Well, this is a normal conversion that occurs in Lakewood, and obviously the congregation is expecting, like we saw the other congregation at the last meeting, that 15 years later they're back and they put up a bigger building, they do a real parking
Sure,
lot.
I just want to make sure that the chairman understands what the parking is going to look like, the 7 spots.
Yes.
So, and you don't require anything.
It's driveways for houses.
You're driving to a driveway 1, 2, 3.
I understand.
And then you have these people.
But Brian, you will know that this shul is going to grow.
Yes, and they have a piece of property that it can grow on, and at that point they'll come back and they'll make a site plan application, and they'll do parking that complies, and they'll give the board what they want.
If we make bigger the shul, there's enough room on this property to make a regular parking lot.
Yes.
Is there anything else in the report? Do you agree with everything in the report?
Well, we agree with it. We're asking for the design waivers and the buffer relief because it's an existing situation. The neighbors aren't going to see anything different, and most of the neighbors are congregants that are going to the shul, and they want you to approve it as well.
What is to the side of this? Who lives there? Are they here?
The applicants are here. They were at the last meeting where we ran out of time, and they were all here anxiously waiting to hear you say approve.
Okay, and you agree with everything else in the report?
Well, we
I see you have
need
ADA.
the relief, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna, the trash is gonna be rolled out, dumpsters.
What's the number
At this
2?
time, we're not-
ADA.
What?
The
The
ADA?
ADA, we need building permits for the shul, and they'll make ADA accommodations.
You'll have a ramp if you need, whatever.
There's an existing ramp there now.
Okay.
You're going to provide sidewalk, right?
The applicant's not proposing sidewalk at this time. There's no other sidewalk in the neighborhood. And when they come back to do the real shul, they will put in a sidewalk and curbing and everything else.
I think we should, that is,
There's no sidewalk anywhere in the neighborhood?
No.
I mean, we don't approve.
Yeah, there's gotta be sidewalk.
There's strict instructions, everything like that.
Yeah, there's gotta be sidewalk,
There's new construction homes in that neighborhood.
We haven't really granted any relief tonight. Sidewalk would be appreciated by the applicant.
Chairman, it looks like per the engineer's notes, it does say that there's sidewalk on the property to the left.
Okay. There is sidewalk in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Many board
Thank you,
members.
Alan. Thank you, Alan.
Seeing none, we'll open it to the public. Anybody in the public would like to be heard on this application, please come forward. Seeing no one, we'll close it to the public. I would entertain a motion on this application.
A motion to approve.
With?
That's, curb sidewalk.
With curb sidewalk. Okay, we have a motion. Mr. Isaacson moves. Who seconds?
I'll second.
And Mr. Myers seconds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes, with sidewalks.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good luck.
What this on?
Yeah,
Next application is SD 23 for 14 for David Herzog. It's a major subdivision, creating 8 lots from 1 on County Line Road. I believe there is opposition. I believe they're approaching
Oh, so
today.
you are? Okay, who's the attorney on this application? Okay, 1 second, please. We start off with our engineer. Terry, when you're ready, you can go through the report.
Looking at our February 19th submission waivers, requested submission waivers for the traffic study, submission to the planning board, board, they provided a traffic impact analysis for the study. We support the submission waiver with this analysis, with the understanding that it will have to satisfy the Ocean County Engineering Department. Moving down, we believe that the project is exempt from Ocean County planning and support the waiver of submission.
Why is it exempt motion?
Because, I'm sorry.
It's on County Line Road, right?
I misread this. We support the waiver from the zoning, says it's on Ocean County Highway. I believe that the applicant is going to submit. Yes. County, okay. You have not yet. Correct. Okay, all right. So you're not requesting a waiver other than the hearing. You do intend to submit.
Correct, it's on County Road.
Submit what are we submitting?
Submission for Ocean County Planning Board.
Just to be clear, because this request does come up quite often, submission to county planning board is a requirement on our submission checklist. That means if the board doesn't have it tonight, they can say the application is not complete. We don't want to give a waiver for that. We want to see proof of submission to the county and know that you're actually, going for these proofs. On the other hand, applicants often say, we don't want to waste the money until we know what the town's going to do, so we haven't submitted yet. As soon as the town approves, we'll submit to the county.
Okay,
That's the only way?
No, there are things.
But Terry, going back to the first one, the traffic study.
Correct.
They gave,
Give a traffic impact analysis,
okay,
which is a summary report. We are okay with accepting the report for local planning board hearing purposes. Ultimately, the county is going to review this traffic impact analysis. Since it's their roadway, if they require additional traffic information for purposes of their determination, they will ask for that.
Yeah, Terry, we discussed in the past that when there's a variance that's coming in front of this board, when there's a variance coming in front of this board, we want to see, and I don't know, maybe this other study completes the picture enough for us, but we want to see what kind of impact it's going to have on the traffic so that we can make a judgment call, should we give the variance or not?
Part of where we started with this truthfully is that even though the UDO now requires a traffic study, it doesn't say what a traffic study is. It doesn't say that a traffic study includes counts, level service analysis, full detail circulation. If the UDO said that's a traffic study or add 3 other requirements, then you would know what you were giving up.
So
I can't tell you definitively what the difference is between their traffic impact analysis and whoever was taking the traffic study, because there's no detail in the UDO.
So you're not sure if they're really requesting a waiver or not?
They're calling it an impact analysis and not a study.
No, so you're not sure if they're required to vote on a waiver?
I think if they titled the document a study, regardless of what was decided, it would fulfill the requirement for the UDO.
It's
Right.
almost semantic.
Right.
So what does the county require? A full study?
The county requires.
Something that's titled a study?
They may call it a study, I don't know whether they have terminology, study versus traffic impact. They are going to require enough information on each application to make a determination as to what the safe ingress and egress is and what improvements, if any, are necessary to the county roadways.
And an impact statement does not give that.
An impact assessment, if I understand, I don't know if the traffic engineer is here. He's not. Okay. Can you try to characterize, Brian, what the impact assessment is?
If I could be sworn in.
Is there a testimony because ordinance developed?
I do, Brian Flannery Jackson, New Jersey, licensed professional engineer.
I think the attorney, I know, because Terry didn't finish his report yet, sorry.
Terry got interrupted.
I know, he got interrupted, I'm sorry.
So my name is Alan Weiss. I'm an attorney in Jackson. I represent the applicant, Mr. David Herzog.
The traffic impact assessment that was submitted, if I had submitted that, I would have called it a traffic report and we wouldn't be talking about it. The county is inclined to ask for more information, and typically on an application like this, if the board acts favorably, we find out what the county exactly needs. The applicant had spoken with some neighbors. There was talk about maybe changing things. He doesn't want to get too far down the road with the county without knowing where he's going. So this is a unique situation. It's a unique piece of property, and when I get into the testimony, you'll hear why he felt that the traffic impact assessment meets the checklist requirement of the UDO.
Terry, back to you, I'm sorry.
Okay. So are we okay with traffic for now?
Okay for now, yes.
Okay. Moving on, we talked about the submission to the planning board, although it has not been done yet, the applicants agreed. And certainly if the board were to act favorably, we would require county approval. We have submission waivers, what's called B-site, within 200 feet of the site. And we support the waiver since we have no information on our plans. Submission waivers requested from the EIS. We support this waiver because the land is partially developed, and the mapping that we have does not show any development. Continuing on, waiver requested from tree protection management. We support that for hearing purposes only. If the application is approved, they will have the document compliance with the pre-ordinance as part of compliance. And finally, submission waivers requested from architectural drawings. We have architectural drawings, however, they do not appear to be consistent with what the applicant is proposing on plans.
Why are they here
We're going to hear whether the board is satisfied with the waivers.
The architectural plans, these are going to be custom lots. I'm sure the board all knows this neighborhood. It's an exclusive neighborhood. It's going to be custom lots. We've shown boxes on the plan because we don't know what they're going to build. If the board acts favorably, we're going to have created 8 12,000 square foot lots in an R12 zone, and the buyers of those lots will pick houses that fit without any additional relief and go to the building department with a plot plan that'll show exactly what's going to be built with the parking spaces, that it complies in all respects.
So you don't have a building envelope on each lot?
Yes, and it's my opinion, and I've said it before, that a checklist requirement for a subdivision application like this, asking for the architectural plans really is a meaningless step, and they submitted those plans so they could hit the checkbox on there that they were submitted, but as Terry points out, they're not what's going to be built here anyway.
Those are the submission papers.
Okay. So we have a motion to go along with engineers' recommendations on the waivers.
What? I really want to understand the difference between what we was submitted for traffic. I mean, I would do all on the side of traffic.
I can describe to you briefly what's in here.
Okay.
Here's the problem I have. The UDO does not say a traffic study shall be submitted, including A, B, C, D, E, and F. And I can go to this and say, well, this includes A, B, and C. Do you think it's enough? I'm looking at it, there's a report that's entitled Traffic Impact Analysis by Morgan Engineering Surveying, involved with PE. You gave a site description, roadway characteristics including access, proposed roadway improvements, a conclusion statement based on the anticipated site traffic volumes, and he has DOT data attached. Is it a complete traffic study? No. So is there a requirement in the UDO as to what a complete traffic study entails? Unfortunately, no.
In my opinion, Mr. Renner, just from recalling the board's desire for adding traffic studies to the checklist requirement, I don't think the board discussed properly what traffic studies should or should not include.
Well, I'm not an engineer. I don't know what to do.
I don't think the board is necessarily as concerned as the county may be as to exactly the details of the traffic study. I think the fact that they have submitted something with traffic calculations that was prepared by a signed and sealed licensed engineer, I would imagine that meets the intent.
So what's the conclusion of that traffic?
The conclusion of the traffic study, and I'm cherry picking from different sections of the report. We're talking about the construction of 8 single-family residential lots. Again, then talk about going down to access, and there's a reference to RSIS standards that indicate that for traffic generation purposes, the subdivision will generate 10.1 feet trips for each single-family detached dwelling for a total of 81 total trips. Based on the other uses within the vicinity of the subject site, these additional 81 trips should not negatively impact the surrounding roadway infrastructure. He's got references to 24-hour volume studies that were performed by the MJDOT. Goes on to conclusions. The proposed development intends to construct 8 residential homes. All of the proposed lots will be accessed from the newly proposed cul-de-sac. The dwellings are consistent with other uses in the vicinity, and the trips resulting from 8 residential homes should have a negligible impact on the surrounding. I'm paraphrasing his English is not very good.
He's an engineer.
On the surrounding roadway infrastructure, considering that in 2013, there were traffic counts a mile west and a mile east of the site that had volumes of 20,000 and 13,000, I assume he's talking average daily trips, respectively. It is concluded based on the information presented above, the construction of the 8 residential homes can operate successfully considering the existing roadway infrastructure.
Now, the difference when we go to the county is, and the county doesn't have it spelled out either, but the county's going to say, we want you to look at this intersection, this intersection, this intersection.
And that's what I want from my engineer to see.
But these are county roads, so your engineer isn't dealing with these roads on a regular basis. The county deals with the roads, and they know where they've taken counts before where they've seen other traffic studies, where they know that they got to look for the impact there. So that is going to be done. It's not something this applicant is going to get out of. And if there's a problem that needs to be fixed, the county is going to require them to pay, and this board will get. This area may not be in the area that's impact fees. The governing body hasn't gotten to that yet, but in the southern part of the town, there's impact fees for everybody. But the county will take impact fees out of this application.
Chairman, I'm personally okay with submission waivers for two reasons. Number one, the traffic study, it does front on the county road. The Ocean County Engineering Department is ultimately going to make the determination of whether or not ingress and egress of the project is sufficient. And with regards to the architectural drawings, I have to agree that for a residential subdivision, it's a waste of time. And I think it's much more important with commercial, industrial, and school development to have architectural drawings beforehand. With a project like this, to see architectural drawings, they could change 10 times before they're actually done. So it's a waste of time.
Or a multi-family development, the low-income family, where you have a lot of,
Right.
then you need it. But when it's single family, I'm okay. Do we have a motion going with the waivers?
Yeah, I'll move to go there.
Yeah. You second it?
And our engineer recommends granting waivers.
We have a second to grant the waivers? Anybody second it?
It could be, I would second it if I heard a lot more. I mean, is it a level C service of, you guys?
It doesn't say.
There's not enough detail in the report to say what the level is.
Well, I can tell you based on, there's 8 houses there.
Does it take into account the basement department? Like, I'm missing information.
With 8 houses there, you're not going to change the level of service, and you will have a C level of service coming out of that entrance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So level service is C, and that's including basement apartments?
Yes.
Is the basement apartments included in whatever?
Yes. The report that's done with the county takes different trip generations in Jackson and Brick and Tom's River than they do in Lakewood. Pretty soon they might be doing that in Jackson and Tom's River also. But for right now, Lakewood has a higher trip generation than, and this applicant, when he goes to the county, he's going to hire McDonough Ray, and he's going to get the traffic report done. They're going to sit down with the county engineer. The county engineer is going to look at the numbers and say, go to a couple more intersections, and they're going to decide what's appropriate and what the impact fee should be.
So I just want to understand, when you figure out the trip generations, you're figuring out based on how many units of building, or
what's the standard procedure is, it's the number of units you're building times a Lakewood trip factor.
Okay. I'm okay.
But again, I think for Mr. Flansman's point, the county will ultimately decide.
So, yeah, we should decide also whether we want to grant the variance or not based on what it says. But it's not a variance.
So you'll second it? Okay, do we all in favor for the granting waiver? Aye. Okay. Do you have any variances you want to go on to zoning? Yes, it's granted, yes.
Continuing on to zoning, variances are requested for the property for minimum lot width. I believe that's the only variance.
That is correct.
John, is there a design waivers there, if I can touch upon?
Yes, sure.
All right, under section 3 of our report on page 4, design waivers include sidewalk along the west side of the cul-de-sac. So the design waivers requested for proposing non-graded lot line. Design waivers required from proposing shade tree and utility easement along West County Road. A design waiver is required for proposing street trees along the West County Line Road frontage.
And just for the board's edification, we're no longer seeking 3 and 4. We will propose the easement and the shade trees along County Line Road. The design waiver for the radial lot line is typical when you have a cul-de-sac, and we are asking for a design waiver for sidewalk on the other side of the cul-de-sac where we're not proposing any houses. It's to the rear yards of existing houses, so there's not going to be houses there. Obviously, if the board thinks we need sidewalk there as well, then we'll have to build sidewalk there. It's my testimony that this would be a case where it would make sense to grant a sidewalk waiver, because it's not a piece of sidewalk that's ever going to be used, but obviously that's a decision that the board will make.
Just show us on the map from where to where you would want to make the sidewalks.
We're getting a little noisy in the crowd.
We are proposing that we would put sidewalk along the cul-de-sac all the way in front of all the houses around the bend. And then on the other side of the street where it's been the rear yards of existing houses not have a sidewalk and leave that vegetation.
Okay, we'll leave it up to the board.
Yeah, Chairman, can I just say something? I think that new cul-de-sacs, regardless of how the board acts on this application, but I think in new cul-de-sacs, you have families, you have children, you have people playing in the streets. You gotta have sidewalks all around, period. Even if there's not gonna be houses on the other side, there's gotta be sidewalks everywhere. Because you're still gonna have people on both sides of the street in the middle of the day, cars coming in and out, and you gotta have sidewalks. If it's a safety factor, you gotta have sidewalks, regardless of how we act on this application.
Okay. I think design of a road, of a cul-de-sac, is having curb and sidewalk around it.
You have to do it.
But
My opinion.
if you look at A1, this is unique in that most cul-de-sacs have houses on both sides.
No, I get it. We get it. There's no houses on the other side, but what we're saying is you're still gonna have people in the street, so you gotta have sidewalks.
Okay, we'll vote on it. We'll vote on it.
If the board says we gotta have sidewalks, we gotta have sidewalks.
You want to go through, Terry, and finish with your report? Okay, so Terry, we're going to go through the report.
Yes.
Not Terry, but Brian, I'm sorry.
All engineers are the same.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You can call me Terry, that's okay.
What else are we going?
Not even close. A1 is a tax map of the area, and it shows all of sheet 18 of the tax map. I've done the perimeter in blue on all the lots that are existing non-conforming lots. A2 is the subdivision map that shows the 8 lots. The application, as Terry indicates on his page 2, what we're here for, we're not here for approval to build houses. We're here to subdivide this 3-acre property into 8 residential lots on a cul-de-sac. And then people will come back and build beautiful houses on those 8 residential lots if the board acts favorably. If you can see on sheet 18, there's a lot of blue. It's a very nice area. The blue lines around those houses where there's variances doesn't mean there's anything wrong with those lots. If you drive through there, it's a beautiful area. In Terry's report, on page 3 under zoning, he says it's a permitted use. So we're building, we're asking for approval to subdivide 8 12,000 square foot lots, and they range from 12,004 square feet to 13,000 and change.
Can I look at that pretty blue? Is that like a development that you're showing there? Or is that just like streets?
Those are existing streets. Canterbury Road and Tanglewood Lane.
Oh, okay. Where's the park over there?
The park is in Canterbury, on the other side of Park.
I have a look candidate, I'm just wondering which one is my house. Are you
The blue one.
Yeah, you don't have. Are you blue there? I don't think mine is undersized.
Yeah, a lot of those are 75 foot wide. And like you say, when you drive down, it doesn't
Mine is
look-
75 by 170.
No.
Okay. I'm on the bend.
75 by
He knows more about your house than you know.
125. Oh, yours may be 75. I'm talking about the whole area. The typical one, 75 by 125. That's a lot of them.
I'm on the bend.
So you're on the bend, okay.
Okay, continue.
So the variance relief that we're asking for here is lot width. We have one lot that conforms with the lot width. We have one along County Line Road where we gave a right-of-way dedication that we're asking for 75, which is consistent with most of what's blue there. And the rest of them we're asking for 86, which even if Mr. Banas was here, I would say that's de minimis. Anybody driving there looking at a lot that's 86 foot wide or 90 foot wide, nobody really knows the difference. So the one along County Line Road where we have increased setbacks will be 75, consistent with them, and the others are 86 foot wide. That's the relief that we're asking for. They all exceed the 12,000 square foot. We're going to comply with side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, coverage. So in the past, where we used to come in and ask for a lot, I would have called this a virtually conforming application, and we may have gone quicker. I know in 2018 we looked at it a little more closely, And we have to provide the justification for that variance relief. Looking at sheet 18 of the tax map, 45% of those lots have variances. If we go just to block 25, 39% of those lots have variances. And those lots also, the 26 in block 25, 25 of them are less than the 12,000 square feet. You have a lot of 10,000 plus square foot lots in there. So these lots aren't going to look out of place. The only people that's going to see the lot width are the people coming in the cul-de-sac that are going to be buying these lots and building beautiful houses. And it's going to provide very nice housing opportunities.
You know, Brian, you know the area very well, and just sticking with the cul-de-sac, is this like the first cul-de-sac in that whole area? The first set? Are we? Is
Well,
this the first one?
no, I think this will be the last cul-de-sac in that area, because if you look at it, the rest of the area is developed. So this is a 3-acre piece that's been sitting there for a long time, and you can see there is one cul-de-sac just to the east of it, and the rest of it is pretty much through roads. And it's a pretty well-developed area. It's not like there's like the southern part of town where there's open spaces or something's going to go a little different. This is a 3-acre piece that sits in the middle of it that's screaming for development.
Another property further down west that's not developed yet.
Yeah, see the road.
Further down west. Yes, there is in this area here, these are all paved. So see the roads developed, Line Park is developed, and then there's a couple of houses in between. But a lot of that is not developed.
It's not the last.
Excuse me?
So it's not the last cul-de-sac.
The last cul-de-sac. It's none of that. I wouldn't expect to see a cul-de-sac. I would expect to see somebody develop those roads, and probably one by one people will develop those roads. So looking at the justification for granting these variances, the first thing I go to is the master plan that was just adopted in December, and on page 2 it tells us about the population growth, and on page 3 it goes on and tells us all the births, and it concludes with, therefore it is important that Lakewood plan for the residential development to house its growing population. And this will provide housing, and it provides a specific type of housing which is appropriate for this area at a density that's appropriate for this area. On the vision statement on page 7, it says encourage development and redevelopment based on smart growth planning principles. It's my testimony that what belongs here is 12,000 square foot lots, and that's what the applicant is proposing. The municipal land use law, NJAC 40:55D2, under the purpose of the act, is A, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in a state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And it's my testimony that this is the appropriate development of this property. It also says to promote the establishment of appropriate population densities and concentrations that will contribute to well-being of persons, neighborhoods, communities, and regions, and preservation of the environment. As far as a population density, the density that's permitted by the R12 zone is 3.63 dwelling units per acre. And if you look at the remainder of that area in there, it gets pretty close to that 3.63. This is proposing 2.64 dwelling units per acre because it's complying with the 12,000 square foot minimum, and it's proposing a single loaded cul-de-sac, which is the only way to provide access for 12,000 square foot lots.
And I just want to, I see the answer, but you're not counting the road as part of the lot area, right?
When I'm giving you, oh no, the lot areas are all 12,000 square feet without the road. It's a dedicated road, 8 12,000 plus square foot lots, and a dedicated 50-foot RSIS compliant cul-de-sac.
The road, the cul-de-sac, buses and trucks could turn around?
It's an RSIS compliant cul-de-sac, so it's the same as every other one that's been built since the 90s when the RSIS was.
We're testifying that a garbage truck can turn around?
Garbage truck can turn around, and there cars aren't parked.
What's the width of the road?
It was drawn in correctly at 30 feet wide. One of the comments in Terry's report is it should be 32, and the applicant is agreeing that it'll be a 32-foot wide cartway, consistent with what the board and Mr. Franklin have been saying for quite a while.
When it's 32 feet, pardon me, Chairman, there'll still be enough room for sidewalk on the far
Yes,
side?
yes.
And that won't reduce the lot sizes on the other side?
That is correct. It's a 50-foot right-of-way, so 32-foot of pavement. You have 9 feet on each side. That's sufficient room for sidewalk on both sides within the right-of-way. The municipal land use law classifies the variances that we're asking for as C variances, and these would be C2 variances. What the municipal land use says for C2 variance is where in an application of appeal relating to a specific piece of property, and you can see this is a unique piece of property. Nobody's going to be coming saying I have 3 acres that's surrounded by development in an R12 zone that I want to do this width, this kind of. It's a very specific piece of property. The purpose of the act would be advanced by deviation from the zoning ordinance requirements, and the purpose of the act are what I just read you with respect to the general development of the land and the appropriate population density. And the benefits of deviation would substantially outweigh any detriment. The board can grant a variance to allow departure from the regulations of the act. So what it's saying, it has to be a specific piece of property, and we have to meet the positive criteria, which my testimony, I indicated that it's my opinion that we do. And then we have to show that no variance or relief can be granted under the terms of this section without a showing that such a variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to public good and will not substantially impair the intent and purposes of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. And this will not impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. Looking at A1, it fits in very nice with that, and it's certainly not going to have a substantial detriment to the public good. It's residential lots exceeding the 12,000 square foot requirement for the R12 zone, and fitting in with the character of the neighborhood. Continuing through Terry's report, we went through the design waivers, the review comments. This is proposed as a public right-of-way. We'll need Department of Public Works approval, which will include the garbage cans that get rolled out to the curb, and a maintenance agreement where there's a maintenance fee for the one-time fee that's paid by the developer. His comment number 2 was with respect to the drafting error where we had said it was going to be 30 feet cartway. We're going to do a 32-foot cartway in accordance with the board's normal standards. The 32-foot exceeds RSIS requirements, but it makes sense for Lakewood. Number 3 indicates there's a number of driveways, but the driveways and all these site features that are shown here are just a typical to show you how much can fit and that the type of houses that people are going to want to build here. These aren't the actual driveways that are going to be built. Each one's going to be a custom plot plan that goes to the engineering department and the building department before any permission to build is granted.
There'll be a driveway with 4 park spaces.
At least 4. These are showing 6. And if they're bigger houses, and this area would typically, the people buying here would want to have a bigger house. If it's bigger houses, they need more than 4, so they may need 5 or 6.
At least 4.
Shown. At least 4, yes. He indicates testimony should be provided regarding the recycling, and it's going to be normal DPW trash can. He talks about a design waiver for sidewalk, which we found out we're not getting, so we don't have to discuss that anymore. Under 8, he indicates we need bypass areas. We're certainly going to comply with the bypass areas and the other township requirements. And in 13, he indicates the
What's the number 12?
water management fee. Number
Drainage
1.
plan is incomplete.
There's some details that need to be added, and as he indicates, it can be done as part of resolution compliance. The drainage system, there's enough detail there to see this works, but as Terry indicates, there's some more details that can be worked out as part of resolution compliance.
Are you comfortable with that, Terry? Working at the bridge?
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
Okay.
Just a couple of housekeeping.
Yes.
Just reading them very quickly. We have objectors here. Nobody put it on the record that the board accepts the testimony of Mr. Flannery is that of an expert.
Yes, we accept that. Yes, we do.
And number two, the tax map that he's been referring to has been labeled A1, and the rendering that Mr. Flannery has been referring to in the testimony has been labeled A2.
Okay, anything you didn't go through, Brian, you agreed to, whatever
Correct.
Terry said on the plan?
Correct.
See number 17, you didn't give a lighting plan? Whatever, number 17, there's no lighting plan? Or it's not been completed?
Yes, and that will be provided as part of resolution
And
compliance.
one thing I know that there are neighbors over here, no lights are still over on the neighbor's property.
Absolutely, and we would provide a plan to be reviewed and accepted by the board engineer.
Okay.
And just to be clear, for the record, we agree and accept the fact that a resolution of approval will be conditioned upon application to the Ocean County Planning Board for their comment and approval.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mr. George, how long do you think you're going to leave the position?
Obviously, questioning Brian, not that long. On my positive case, maybe a little longer. I know you try to close the shop by 9.
No, I was just going to ask the chairman, I know Mr. Doyle has a commitment, and it's a correspondence matter, and Mr. Vogt and I recommend that the board approves it on correspondence. I was wondering if we could just take a moment to do that, so Mr. Doyle will be on his way.
I'm sorry, I did speak with the chairman about it today, just for reference to the 3G Wawa.
What happened is the county wanted to, do the, I know that the town's working on it.
How long will it take so long?
At the bottom of your plan, staff can do a copy of the plan, they submitted along with the correspondence representing the property boundary line they want to change.
Mr. Doyle, how long would it take you to do it?
I'll do it 60 to 70
Those
seconds to
4
explain.
minutes. Could you agree to the 4 minutes?
Yes. As was said, you approved the expansion of the Wawa Center that was at Squancum and East County Line Road. That's existed for a number of years. Critical to it is the light on Squancum opposite where East Kennedy continues. The county, after you approved it, said they want to keep the two-way access in and out.
1 second, Mr. Boyd. I just want to put it on for the record. We recommended that it should be a one-way in.
We had to apply for it as one-way because we could, the traffic signalization devices that would have to be revised were within 10 feet of the property line between us and the neighbor. The neighbor did not wish at the time to be a part of the application. We had no choice. The county was clear, and the township, I think, would have preferred the two-way. But because of the technicality I just explained, we couldn't do what we couldn't do before you. We went there, and they said, we want to keep the in and out.
That's on Swampton or?
On Swampton.
Okay, and the one on the
It's
county
right in
line?
and right out only on East County.
That stays the way, nothing's changing there?
That's not changing.
Okay.
So the only change, in effect, is to continue what has always been there, the two-way. The neighbor and my client, the owner, have resolved their difference, not their difference, better understood the neighbor. There's a slight transfer of property to facilitate what's going to the county for the traffic signalization. So really what we're seeking to do is to preserve the status quo. The status quo that has existed safely with that traffic light at the intersection for
I'm sorry, I'm
at least 10 years.
What did you get a school to do and what are you looking to do?
We got approved for the expansion of the center, and as a part of that was to be an out only on Squonkam. It has historically, for at least 10 years, been an in and out.
What, you talking about the first entrance?
No,
on Squonkam, not East County.
Okay. What is it currently?
It is currently and has been for 10 years two-way. Traffic light controls the traffic. East Kennedy is purposely right opposite the driveway so that it's a cross intersection, and it has worked well. It is a county road, and the county wants to preserve it as is.
Okay, so your plans are showing that it's a one-way right now.
The plan that you had approved, because we could not put the necessary traffic signalization and the turning radius on our property only, but we wanted the expansion, we came before you with the one-way, because we couldn't put it anywhere else.
Is there anything on the plan that is changing besides that entrance on Swanson Road?
Nothing is changing from what you had approved.
So why are you here? 1 second.
Why are we here?
Because he likes to see us.
Because I like the company.
We approved an in only off of Swanson.
And they want to see it now.
There's an existing in and out of Swanson.
And they want to
signalized intersections. We want to leave it like that.
Okay. Now, 1 second.
Right?
You said before
You're right, we're here to preserve the status quo.
Yeah.
Okay, there's going to be a transfer of land for different ownership. Does that have to be shown on the plan?
The plan that's been presented to you is shown, it's about 1,500 square feet or 3/100ths of an acre.
That's the shaded area?
Yes.
There's like a flip-flop between an easement and a grant. You see two sections, they put an easement on one part and a grant on the other.
That would be accommodate in and out?
Accommodate the county one.
Okay.
And I understand that the town was working on this, and this is what the town agreed as well, is that correct, Eric?
Mr. Doyle, the in and out functions on Squonkam now without the property transfer.
The in and out does, but the county wants to refine the radius. They need to do something more modern with the traffic light, which requires another one of those boxes, which for safety needs to be put just outside our property.
So, Mr. Doyle, whatever you're stipulating right now on the record, the county, that's what they want.
Yes.
That was approved. That's their plan, how they want to have.
That's correct. That's what the county planning board has already approved.
And there's nothing besides that small piece of transfer of land changing with any circulation on the property.
That's correct.
If there's already an in and out on Swanton Road, why do you need additional traffic?
That's
We
what I was
switched
just saying.
it to.
Oh, I'm sorry, you missed the conversation.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Because the modern improvements to the traffic light require that signalization box to be placed in an area that is just outside our property.
Oh, okay.
So you have to
in and out staying in
acquire,
the same place?
you have to
Yes.
acquire more land actually to.
That's the 1,500 square feet that's being, the neighbor said,
Got it. So you acquired more land to accommodate the new, traffic.
we did, and we gave him land in return.
Got it.
Okay, any other question, any board members? No. Okay, we have to open to the public?
No.
Okay.
It's just to confirm the administrative approval. Mr. Vogt recommends administrative approval. I recommend administrative approval. I assume an amended resolution. It's just the board.
Are we all in favor?
To say that-
All in favor, aye? Aye. Okay, all in favor.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but I.
No problem, thank you.
Mr. Jackson, thank you for your
Okay,
time.
but Mr. York, I'm sorry.
They've been working on that for over a year, so.
Okay. You should have came a year ago.
Mr. Doyle gave me a break and Tom's over last week, so it's my turn to give him. Michael York, Nova York and Jacobus, on behalf of one of the objectives, there's a number of them here tonight, I only represent one of them. I have some questions for Mr. Flannery. One of them has to do with notice, but I think Mr. Flannery. Mr. Flannery, you saw the plans we did, there was discussion of the plans, they indicate, at least in the plans, that they're multi-family homes, correct?
Architectural plans were labeled as multi-family, two-family homes, something like that.
And we're not building, the applicant's not
The
proposing.
applicant's not proposing two-family homes.
Is the applicant asking for basement apartments?
The applicant's asking for residential lots where he can build whatever is permitted by Lakewood ordinance. Lakewood ordinance does permit.
And then that's my question, and that goes
One at
to
a
the.
time, please.
Okay, that's my question, and that goes to notice. I haven't found, and maybe someone can show me, where in the ordinance it says you're allowed a basement apartment. And if in fact you're allowed a basement apartment, isn't that a second family? And then it goes to the notice issue, because the notice issue clearly says that we're building single family homes. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm not sure I can get an applause for that, but I can't figure it out.
The answer to the question is, we're not asking the board to allow basement apartments. We're asking the board to subdivide this 3-acre property into 8 12,000 square foot lots zoned R12 that allow whatever's allowed in the R12. And I'd be happy to show Mr. York after the meeting where in the ordinance it says basement apartments are allowed, but that's not part of this application. We're not asking for basement apartments. We're asking for R12 lots, the same as every other R12 lot in Lakewood.
Right, so then would the applicant agree that they will not build basement apartments?
The applicant is very clear. They want this 1 3-acre lot divided into 8 12,000 plus square foot lots in the R12 with all the rights of any other R12 lot in Lakewood.
Which I have no problem with, as long as it includes not building basement apartments. My problem with the basement apartment issue is, again, it's not in the ordinance. Brian says, if Brian can find it, I'll believe it. I can't find it in the
I would
ordinance.
hope you would believe me without making you take the ordinance out.
I have to make you take the ordinance out. If it's not in the ordinance, then the notice is wrong. Right? Because the notice clearly says we're building single family homes. If they're going to later come at some point and say, oh, by the way, we actually want 2 family, I've never been given the opportunity to cross-examine the applicant as to whether or not they're building.
I think that allowing, it's a single family with a basement and it's not considered a 2-family.
I'm trying to find, it's not in chapter 18 basement apartments because it applies to building code requirements, which the board doesn't deal with. So neither of us are familiar with the section. However, this does come up regularly before the board, and our understanding is that there are specific classifications in the building department for the type of housing so that they meet the proper building code requirements with regards to occupancy, and those may or may not match exactly the terms used in this setting. However, this board has conventionally understood this to be single-family homes with potential basement apartments, which are not the jurisdiction of this board to CO, to inspect, to determine what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Okay. I'm showing Mr. York section 18-910 labeled basement apartments.
Thank you. So it is 18, I misspoke then. It was incorrect.
What does it say?
It says, and again, we're not asking for basement apartments. We're asking to subdivide the property into 8 lots and a right-of-way. It says the purpose of this section is to regulate basement apartments as defined herein and ensure compliance with the rules. Basement apartment must meet all the requirements of basement as defined in state codes. Definition of basement apartment must have address, designation, mailbox, permitted use. Basement apartments are permitted uses in all residential zones or those that have been grandfathered because they have been established prior to this. There shall only be 1 basement apartment for residents. The basement apartment has its own means of egress. Basement apartments, an upstairs unit must have access to all utilities. Basement apartment, an area above ground must be separated by fire separation. Prohibition: basement apartments are prohibited in the A1 agricultural zone and the R40 residential zone in age-restricted communities. And I have the old one in here because the R40 residential zone was taken out. It's only prohibited at this point in the, if Ally pulled up the ordinance online, you would see it's only prohibited in the A1 and age-restricted communities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now I would agree that basement apartments are permitted in the R12. I agree. The problem is now the notice is effective. The notice says that they're building single-family homes, and they're limiting this application to single-family homes. If they're planning on putting basement apartments, the notice is defective. Now, I don't expect Mr. Jackson or the board to rule on this decision, but I think I have a very good case before Judge Ford as to why you can't possibly approve basement apartments with this application.
Mr. Jackson. I know Mr. Jackson.
I'll tell you what the issue is. The applicant is seeking lots for single-family homes like every other lot in Lakewood. If somebody can go to the building department and get an approval for a basement apartment, that's up to the applicant at that time, just like it is for any other homeowner. So the applicant is not seeking anything more than a single-family home. Now, and they're not precluding future purchasers from going in and getting a permit, just like any other lot's allowed to. So, I understand what Mr. York is saying, but this is the way this board has always governed these matters. It's the way Lakewood works, so I don't have any issue with the notice.
We'll have to put new notice again.
No, I'm satisfied with the notice, and if Mr. York's correct, and he can persuade the judge that he's correct, we're going to have to change the way we do things.
Or have a new notice.
Yeah, or having they
Add wording.
then get reversed because the notice is effective and they have to come back. But like I said, they're not seeking multifamily, they're not seeking duplexes. He's not seeking basement apartments. He wants a single-family lot with all the rights, privileges, and things that go with that.
So he's simply being candid and telling you that most likely they're going to have basement apartments like everywhere else.
No, it could be.
Okay.
Two things in response to Mr. York. Number one, I was retained after this application was.
If you go to the mic, we don't have a stenographer, we should have everything on the record.
I was retained after the applicant initially submitted his application in November. I had re-noticed and republished this application, and I believe that I was painstaking in giving the public sufficient notice about what this application was going to curtail. And I did say in the application, they're single-family detached dwellings, and that they are permitted in the R12 zoning district. I would just say, as a point of commentary, that this is definitely not what we commonly understand in the English language to be multifamily, and it certainly isn't any other type of structure that would define multifamily. It's entirely conceivable under these definitions that are easily understood by the public, and I would imagine by the board, that I could imagine a situation where a family would have residents upstairs and could have an adult sibling or child living downstairs.
Can I cut you off, because we're past this issue. You can make your argument in court, and the board is satisfied with the notice.
Anything else?
No, none of that. Mr. Connery, one of my clients, and pardon me for getting which lot he owns, is one of the property owners, and you're better with directions than I am, this is to the west. Thank you. That's the east. What's the minimum lot frontage on these properties? And I assume, let's assume for argument's sake, the street's up here further.
You can see those lots on A1, and you're referring to the lots 38 through 57. Those lots are 100 foot wide. Lot 38 is 89, 39 is 90, and 40 is 79.6.
Sorry, I didn't mean long way. I meant, what's their minimum lot frontage on Cedar Road? I assume it's the same as your proposed street, but
90 and 100 feet.
So, minimum lot frontage, minimum front yard setback.
Front yard setback in the R12 zone is 30 feet.
And in the rear?
The rear yard setback is 20 feet.
Now, isn't this proposal in essence creating a second front yard for these lots to the west?
It could be viewed that way. Lakewood ordinance has a couple of definitions for through lots and reverse frontage lots, which implicate things differently. So the answer is maybe.
Okay, and if they have, let's say, for instance, there's a shed that I can see on this one, but a pool, any kind of shed, any kind of accessory structure, if the home is more than, let's say, 20 feet closer to the road, you in essence are correct, is creating a non-conformity for all the elements.
The road being there, yes, land use at from a rear line.
Right, so your client's proposal creates these nonconformities for my client and his neighbor.
If there's existing structures, it would be existing nonconformities, yes.
Right, and even if, for instance, their home, which presumably, let's say their home is only 20 feet from your proposed road A, it's a nonconformity. And they have a garage.
I looked at the area, I didn't see any homes, but if there was a home 20 feet from there, it would be a nonconformity.
Created by this application
Yes.
and not by any fault of any of these homes?
Yes.
And if you were to remove just one of these 8 homes, you have no variance, correct?
That is correct.
And you discussed the hardship. What exactly is the hardship? Because I'm still not clear on it, other than your client's request to build 8 homes.
Well, I thought you listened to my testimony, but I never mentioned the hardship, where I said it was a C2 variance. And I'm sure you know what a C2 variance is, that the benefits outweigh the detriment.
And
But we're missing a word in that. How do the benefits outweigh the detriment?
So that was Mr. York's question, how do the benefits?
No, you said the benefits outweigh the detriments in the C2, but how do they have to outweigh the statute says the benefits must substantially outweigh?
Yes, yes.
And what is the overall benefit to the community of having the 8 homes?
Well, first of all, any development of this property with residential lots, since it only has access to County Line Road, is going to have to put a roadway in along one property line or the other, creating the same situation that you expressed on these lots. So if you're asking about a hardship, that would be a hardship in developing this property. The unique shape of it would require a roadway either on the west side as proposed or on the east side. The benefits, as I pointed out, were from the municipal land use law and from the master plan, indicating there's a need to project for the housing population, getting an appropriate population density. The population density permitted in the R12 zone is 3.63 units per acre, and we're substantially less than that.
What are you at?
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah. 2.6.
I'm lost over here. Any person, if this would be totally conforming, because they're building a road.
Let me just take a step back. Under the municipal land use law, under 40:55D70, C1 and 2. C1 is a hardship due to the peculiarities of the lot, topography, shape, situations uniquely affecting the lot. You have a hardship. It's not practical. Under C2, when you advance the purposes of the municipal land use law and the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments, then you can make a determination that it meets the positive criteria. You can meet the positive criteria under C1 because you have a hardship, or under C2 because you advance the purposes of zoning, and if that granted, the application is substantially outweighs any detriments. Then you have to do a negative criteria test. You have to ask, can there be, is there substantial detriment to the zone plan and to the neighborhood and to the master plan? So it's kind of like a 3-part analysis. They said they don't meet the positive criteria under C1, so you go right to C2. So you ask yourself, well, what are the benefits? And Mr. Flannery, that's right, that's your name. Mr. Flannery says that the benefits are that it's appropriate population densities, and he believes that that benefit substantially outweighs any detriments. My suspect is that Mr. York is going to say it's too crowded, it's undersized, there's too much population, etc. So what Mr. Flannery sees as a benefit, I suspect Mr. York is going to say a detriment. The board will have to sort that all out.
And my question to you, it's technically a lot, but it's going to have two frontages.
Well,
which we usually consider it a rear. We don't give it to...
That's something you have to put that all into your mixing bowl and make a decision.
And is there any law that I cannot build a road in my backyard if it's going to make another lot non-conforming?
Well, I don't see...
because those lots are
then suddenly become double-fronted.
They are.
I think that is a detriment.
Yeah.
You may be... There's nothing that prohibits that, but you may look at that as a detriment, and you may say, well, the benefits don't substantially outweigh the detriment of making all those lots now double fronted, and you're effectively making, 6 or 7 lots non-conforming.
Brian, is there any houses on that road that will be within 30 feet of that new road, of the new cul-de-sac?
The existing homes?
Yes.
I didn't go in anybody's backyard, but from Google Earth, that they were not within 20 feet. I would also go, if I was one of them, one of those owners, and somebody said you have a variance situation, I would direct them to, I would direct them to the ordinance. There's through lots.
Mr. Flannery, before you do that, do you agree that you're creating, that all those lots now are non-conforming because they're double fronted?
I don't agree, because there's a definition in the
Hold on, I want Mr. Herzl to hear this, he's looking at the plans. Mr. Herzl, I asked Mr. Flannery if he agrees that this road makes all those lots that it adjoins now non-conforming, and he's about to answer that, because I think you want to know the answer to that. So how does it not make those lots non-conforming?
I'm trying to find the definition in the ordinance. First, what I'd like to point out is any development of this property is going to require a road along the property line. So that is a hardship of this property that would require that.
Unless you make a single-family house on it.
Unless you make a single-family
I
house.
just want to point out one thing. This board has seen a lot of applications on properties that are long and narrow off of a property like this. And every time they come in with these pretend roadways, they're 20 feet wide, and they're really easements on the lots that are, and the roadways are counting towards the lot areas. In this case, while it's unfortunate if the right-of-way runs along the rear of these properties, this applicant is providing a fully compliant right-of-way with RSIS standards. It's 50 feet wide with 32 feet paving with curb and sidewalk on both sides. I don't know what more the board could ask.
That all goes into the mix, but the question Mr. Herzl raised, do you make those lots non-conforming?
The answer to your question, Mr. Jackson, is in the definition section of the ordinance. There's a definition, reverse frontage lot, which these clearly would be once we put them in. And a reverse frontage lot says a lot which fronts on 2 parallel streets and is not accessible from one of the parallel streets. Reverse frontage lot shall have 1 front yard, 1 rear yard, and 2 side yards. So my definition would be the rear yard stays a rear yard. It has the front yard on the street that it has access to, and it has 2 side yards.
What makes you say it doesn't have access to the road behind it?
Well, because they're already constructed on the other street.
But that doesn't mean they can't punch a curb cut through.
Well, and if they punch a curb cut through, then they're creating their own problem.
But that doesn't mean they don't have access. They have access if the road's behind them.
Well, they have no physical access. It doesn't say that they don't have the ability, and it doesn't clearly define it. But
all right, Mr. Herzl, I'm just evaluating this. You can draw your own conclusion.
Ali's right. We approved hundreds of applications with roads, and we never had this. It's a conforming road. We never had a thing.
Ali's right. That should be our logo, our motto.
Right. And I can tell you what people do in other towns. They put what's referred to as a spike strip. They put a 1-foot strip along that property so that now it doesn't front on it.
Well, that's not a spike strip. A lot of times that's just done to control access. Because, somebody might not want the traffic coming out on that side of the road.
To prevent access to neighbors who won't pay into the subdivision.
That's not necessarily for spite. It could be for control.
Okay, a control strip. I think that would be stupid.
Now, what I asked you before, are there any houses that will be within 30 feet to the new road?
I didn't see any looking at Google Earth
you have right
that were going to be within 20 feet of this. 30 feet. 30 feet. But I wasn't in their backyards.
Do you see it from here? Do you see it?
I don't think I'm going to be able to measure on that. I looked at it.
It's all
Yeah,
Yeah.
Here, turn off the satellite. Brian, one second.
I'm trying to. I don't know where it is on here.
You know what it is? Don't show it. You know how to do it.
On the record, there's alternatives. C1, hardship, and then C2. C2 does not require hardship. You have to advance the purpose. Substantial, the benefit substantially.
Now, I'm just confused, I never heard of this, that you're creating non-conforming lots.
Well, that's, you could, when you do your weighing, you have to put that all in the mix.
Okay.
But C2 does not require hardship, but and it just has to substantially outweigh that. And it has to be done without any substantial detriment to the zone plan.
And the applicant would happily put a 6-foot fence along that line. To close it off so there is no access. They'd be happy to get the township to do whatever. If the property owners want to be considered reverse frontage lots and have that a rear setback, that can be accommodated with the township. In my opinion, it's already there. But that's why when Mr. York asked me originally, I said maybe, because it would depend on
how you interpret the law.
Yes, on how you interpret it.
Can I just cut to the chase on something? Mr. York, you're critical, or it seems like by your questioning, you're saying, well, why so many lots, basically? You don't need that many lots. Is there a number of lots that your client is comfortable with? Like, is it a density issue, a crowding issue? And if so, what are they looking for?
No, with all those issues, and no, my clients aren't necessarily looking for anything other than what they want, yes.
Okay, so if they eliminated one of the lots and made all the lots a little bigger or a lot bigger, that wouldn't matter to you?
No.
Okay, all right, thank you. I just wanted to get that out there.
Brian, you're going back to the detriment. So is it your testimony that the benefit of this entire application outweighs the detriment of my clients, or my client and the neighbor?
Well, I don't think the intent of the municipal land use law is to take personal benefit and detriment. The benefit is to the general public, both the benefits and the detriment. So I balance the benefits and the detriments to the public good based on the master plan and the municipal land use law.
Right, but the only detriment to the public good would be to my clients, right? Is there a detriment to the township?
What you're referring as a detriment to your client seemed to be that it was creating a front yard setback issue, which per the definition in the ordinance, if we put a fence up so it was inaccessible, it no longer is a front yard setback. By ordinance, if we reduced one lot so all the widths were there, we'd have 7 lots instead of 8. That's not going to change what occurs to your clients. The only way, if your clients are on the west side, the only way we could change that would be to flip it over to the east side, and then the people on the east side would have the road along there, because there is a hardship to this piece of property to develop it as an R12 residential, other than one big lot, or the other uses that are permitted in the R12, which is schools and shuls and daycares. And I don't think the neighbors would be, I think they would be impacted more by a school or a shul or a daycare than they would by this subdivision.
Can I just want to clarify, this is what's called the negative criteria. I commented on it and both attorneys did. But this is no variant, and this is after you get past the positive analysis. If you find a hardship or if you find the benefits substantially outweigh the detriments. Then you have to ask, no variance or other relief may be granted without a showing that such variance or other relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and will not substantially impair the intent and the purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. So it's not necessarily specific to the house next door, except to the extent that disrupting the house next door disrupts the zone plan in general. So I just want to clarify what I said about that.
Right,
That's what
and
the
with
statute
respect
says.
to the houses next door, it's clear on this application that we're asking for a variance. So we're here with our hat in our hand saying we'll do whatever's needed. We can buffer, we can put a fence, we can do whatever we want so that house next door, any impact is limited with landscaping or fencing. But the property is not going to be developed as one single family home. The other uses that are permitted in this zone are schools and daycares, and that's going to impact those homeowners more than the residential lots that we're proposing.
So send kitty cat there. Okay. Mr. York, anything else?
I do. Turning to Mr. Boat's February 19th. I'll share it. February 19th letter, number 5 on page
ahead.
Site triangulation.
Yes. Is the proposal to have the site triangle easement on the western portion of this new road, proposed road A?
The site triangle easement, we would propose a ASHTO site triangle easement, which, as you heard from testimony earlier this evening, it's 8 feet back from the stop bar, and it's my opinion that that's not going to impact the lot next door, and the site triangles are something that the county requires. So any approval by this board would be subject to getting the county to agree that the site triangle that's proposed is appropriate.
And to get a site triangle though from lot 58.02, you'd have to have 58.02 permission, correct?
My testimony is that the site distance that you would need would be accommodated within the right of way, and that we would not need their permission. Now, the county may say you need a bigger one. The county's normal standard is 30 feet. We would need permission from them. So I know the process at the county. We're going to go there and they're going to say we want it. So we're going to go and ask them if we can buy it. If they say no, then the county will approve a waiver to use the ASHTO site triangle. The ASHTO is a recognized standard. It's recognized by the residential site improvement standard. It's the national standard that people use, and by the ASHTO standard, we would be okay.
Can you throw the site triangle?
Roughly?
Yeah.
Which
Just
one?
to show whether it goes on other properties.
Which one?
Well, up on this corner, I think what he's saying is, the site triangle is going to go across lot, 5802, and I just want to see, he says it once.
Well, let me give you a ruler back, and I'll give you a scale. So
okay, that's even better. I have a scale too. I want to see your check. But I think that's a, you know.
So,
You have a red pen? You can see it?
There's a color.
So what the county would normally ask for is a 30-foot by 100-foot. Site triangles. And that's what this applicant will go and ask lot 58.2 if they're inclined to sell to. If lot 58.02 says no, then we go and we say we want to do an ASHTO site triangle. So we go back 8 feet from the stop line, and we go a couple hundred feet up the road, and we say that's the site distance that we need in that direction and this direction. And there we have the site distance inside the right of way.
What's the speed limit on County Line Road?
90, 45.
It is a busy road. The county is going to, from experience, I can tell you, the county is going to ask for this site triangle, and if the applicant makes an offer to the property owner and to buy that site triangle easement from them, and they say no, then they're going to accept the ASHTO site triangle.
Mr. Grove, what I've seen the county do is condemn that property too, and require the applicant to either buy it or condemn it, so.
You can't condemn it, it's not theirs.
Well, but no, the county can, because once that road is there, the site triangle is for traffic safety, and the county can condemn to create it, so I just want you to know that could impact that lot.
Unless he has to build one less lot, and his road starts goes back more. I mean, it wouldn't help you. It wouldn't help.
Well, and I think I have answered that. My experience with the county is the ASHTO site triangle, which is what the RSIS relies on, doesn't go as deep as the county site triangle. They'd rather have deeper one. And the applicant's happy to pay fair market value plus a little for a site triangle easement. If that owner doesn't want to sell it, Mr. Jackson is right, the county can condemn it if they thought, but the county doesn't do that. The county
Why does the county want a deeper section?
Well, the county wants it because somebody put that in the county regulations 30 years ago.
Well, it's safety, so it's more site visibility.
So the people going downtown
It's
are
like
very
when I ask
fast.
how fast people when I'm driving my brothers, I know too.
Right.
You're asking rhetorical.
Right, I'm trying. People drive very fast downtown.
I was kidding.
Right. That's why we need a longer site triangle.
So maybe if you don't get the site triangle that the county wants, do you think it's maybe important for safety to have a right in, right out? Do you think that's approval?
If the board feels right in, right out, we would certainly agree to right in, right out. I don't know any of the other roads that are there that are right in, right out.
Then you agree you don't need a site triangle or these ones?
It's my professional testimony that the county is going to require that we have adequate site distance. That's what the site triangle is there for adequate site distance. 30 years ago, when the county engineer, and I think it was Ron Latrecchio put it in, he thought, well, more is better, so let's ask for a bigger one. If we get a bigger one, good. And when that's a problem, they say, well, let's go to the standard, the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, and see what they say. And as long as you have adequate site distance, so a car that pulls up there can see and doesn't have to pull out, doesn't have to, they may anyway, but they have the availability to see a far enough distance.
2 lane each direction, this part?
Yes, it's 2 lanes.
Yes.
2 lanes each side.
If the board wants a right in, right out,
No, I don't know
the
what you want.
applicant would agree to it.
I don't know what I want.
Yeah, normally we would, if the board acts favorably, we go to the county, and then the county will tell us what they want.
I have an issue making a left turn with no light over there, personally.
And the applicant would certainly agree to right in, right out. That's obviously subject to the county's jurisdiction. I can't imagine why the county would say, no, we want you to be able to make left turns. It doesn't make sense, but.
I live in Canterbury, we make left turns out there, it's pretty hard.
I've made my left turns in and out of there too.
I know, it's difficult, we're right by the bend.
It's a good thing you weren't coming back.
I've seen some school buses make some pretty radical left-hand turns just tonight on a video.
Okay, Mr. York, anything else?
Mr. Rose notes that the drainage plan is incomplete. When it would be completed.
Yes, it would be completed prior to receiving resolution compliance.
Right, and I have to point out to the board that obviously the objectors aren't able to cross-examine Mr. Flannery, I forgot to do that, as to what the proposed drainage plan looks like, as well as the same goes for storm management. Because I assume that would, if the board were to act favorably, you complete that at the contract.
Yes.
And again, the same objection that we haven't been able to cross-examine Mr. Flannery. And again, the last thing on that would be a lighting plan as well, right?
Correct.
And again, my client hasn't been able to, won't be able to cross-examine Mr. Flannery on that as well.
I don't understand anything to be able to cross-examine.
Again, asking questions on something that doesn't exist yet, that hasn't been submitted to the board. The board's going to say it's going to be part of resolution compliance, and that's past our time.
Terry, why wasn't it submitted?
Under the new submission procedures and the new plan review meeting procedure, I do not.
Allow it to go forward.
Well, I believe Terry's letter would have indicated it's not ready for public hearing yet. However, in every application, the applicant still has the right to push to go forward, so you may still get some that come through that way.
You could carry it, make them come back with revisions, so Mr. York can have at it. It's 8:58, that's not a crazy rate.
Well, it's not. Do you agree?
We agree to do whatever the board.
No, I'm saying to get the calculations, and we should put it all on record. The drainage and lighting.
He brings up a good point that he hasn't had the opportunity to review it, and his client doesn't have the opportunity to cross-examine regarding this.
We're talking about the drainage, lighting, and stormwater.
Would we still be able to hear your affirmative case before we talk tonight?
We'll leave in 2 minutes.
I'm sorry,
Well, he brought a plan right, and I was wondering if we could hear parts of his direct case before we leave.
You can do it in 2 minutes, yes.
And I'm assuming the rest of the neighborhood would like to have their fight at Mr.
Yeah, in light of the weather and everything else.
His planner should have the chance to respond to your whole plan.
Okay.
Okay, so,
We agree to have the, matter carried.
Yeah, let me ask you, when can you have all these calculations done for the board?
I mean, and review, it has to be, when do you need it by the latest? That time to review it.
For April 10th, last week,
So it's not happening.
April 24th.
That's why I'm asking you. For April 24th, you have enough time? When does that have to be in the revision?
Hold on just a minute.
Yes, thank you.
Really need it by the end of next week,
So,
March 30th.
can you, 1 second, Brian, can we have all the revisions by March 30th?
Ryan's not doing the plans. I don't think Matt's gonna have the plans by March 30th. You know his track record. So push us to the next meeting.
May 8th, and I'll give him a date and make sure that he's aware
Yes.
that 10 days before the meeting is not
Yes.
enough. Because
Right.
we had that happen in the past.
Right. Right.
Let me, 1 second.
I'll have to email him a date tomorrow, thank you.
Ally, let me ask you,
Thank you, that way.
what about them going back to a PEP meeting on the,
You can do that as well, you can just not announce a date, and you can renotice when the plans are ready.
Mr. Jackson, what do you recommend? We don't have the drainage, we don't have the lighting.
I mean, at this point, you're looking to carry it 2 months from now.
I don't think they should have to renotice. The law says that once they're here and you just renotice the application, everyone's interested is here, they should notice it. I don't think they should have to renotice.
And I would stipulate, at least from my client's perspective, I have no problem with them not renoticing.
Okay.
I don't speak for everyone, but.
Okay, so we were going for the May 8th
Yeah,
date?
let me confirm that that's actually the date that we have noticed for May, since
And,
we're not scheduling anything that far in advance yet.
Okay, and we have to know when, 10 days before when that is.
10 days before what?
When they,
That 10 days before doesn't mean anything, because we need to plan before that in order for Terry to be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think to have a meaningful meeting, that we would have the plans and papers on file with the board engineer prior to the 10 days, so he could do a meaningful review and generate a new letter. I agree with that.
You're gonna need plans, I'm gonna plan by April 13th, which is a Friday, and that gives us 1, 2, 3 weeks.
Yeah, we agree.
okay, so we need a motion to move it to the May 8th, right?
Correct.
So you moved the, Mr. Flansbrough moves, Mr. Sable will second. Roll call.
I'm sorry, just a moment. Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Renner? Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
And Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so it will be a continuation.
Yes, everyone make the announcement?
Yes. Members of the public be advised that number 5 on tonight's calendar, application SB 2314, Woodstock has been tabled and will be continued. This meeting called May 8, 2018, 6 p.m. with no further notice to be provided.
We need to hear Adam again,
He's stuck in there, we have to hear it.
Mr. Jackson was gracious enough to prepare.
Curfew, 9 o'clock.
Members of the public, please be advised, we're still continuing the meeting up here. Please try to be
Yeah,
quiet.
we're tape recording, so please,
Thank you.
hold your conversation to the hall. Thank you for your courtesy.
Mr. Jackson, went ahead and did prepare a resolution to present to me. I did have an opportunity to review it and give it to my client. The conditions are in there. We have no objection, and we are fine with the resolution. We would ask if we can.
I emailed it to all the board members, you should have it on your
Maybe,
device.
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Sable had the conditions. Yeah, we have it open in front of you. Go ahead. Just on the bottom with the conditions, that we agreed to add the balance, the circulation, striping,
Signage.
Yeah,
I put all the
Can we bring it
testimony
up
from the minutes.
on the-
I
on
put
the
the
actual-
conditions from the, review letters. And here are the conditions. The applicant, by agreement of March 20th, shall submit a traffic circulation striping plan to the satisfaction of the board engineer and submit revised plans showing same. The striping and signage will be shown on the plan will be installed. The applicant shall submit a Title 39 letter to the board attorney and engineer to show the police, that will allow the police to enforce traffic regulations. Number 4, the applicant shall install bollards to the satisfaction of the board engineer to prevent buses from entering the southwest driveway off of New Hampshire Avenue. 5, design waivers are granted. As section 3, 1 through 4 in the review letter, the applicant should provide recorded documents to satisfaction of the board engineer attorney regarding the right to use off-street parking easement. The applicant should provide all the required outside agency approvals, including developer's agreement, tree ordinance, fire commissioners, MUA, Ocean County Planning Board, soils, and any and all other outside agency approvals. And the applicant shall abide by all representations made at the hearing, and any changes shall require amended site plan.
The only thing, Mr. Jackson, he testified before, where is he?
Mr. Arbach?
Mr. Albert said they would do it before they can, they start any building, they would do it right away.
The ballots?
The safety things.
I'll agree to that event. That's fine.
And any safety issue should be done right away.
That's fine.
Before you start building. Can you add it onto it?
Yes, I will.
What?
Leave it ordered already.
I've been ordered.
Well, that just confirmed,
Yeah.
you were aware of this.
The one-way
I'll add
striping
number
floor.
7, all safety improvements.
Thank you. Sorry.
In,
Mr. Jackson, you happy with it? You saw, you read it? It makes sense?
Mr. Jackson,
I wrote it.
Yeah, you wrote it. Oh, you
I wrote it as I said.
You did both together.
All safety improvements such as bollards,
Signage.
signage, and striping
Prior to issuance of the building permit.
shall be done immediately. And prior to the issuance of a building permit. Okay, it's done.
We have a motion with this, okay?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, roll call?
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Flansbrough?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl?
Yes.
Mr. Renner?
Yes.
Mr. Isaacson?
Yes.
And Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
I just want to thank you, on
Thank you,
behalf of my
Adam.
client, for working with us, and thank you,
Okay,
Mr.
and
Jackson.
thank you,
for
Adam,
getting
for
this
go-
done in a quick time period.
Thank you for
Thank you,
investing.
Adam, for going out of your way and getting it done. It's a safe issue, I hope you understand.
And again, it's already gone, we're doing it,
Okay.
moving on.
There's a lot of kids in that school, and
We have no objection to safety.
Okay.
Not regarding this application, Jeff, but why don't we do this Title 39 thing with every resolution?
I don't know what it was.
I didn't know there was a choice.
That apparently allows the police department to enforce traffic.
Yeah, why would they-
Why don't we just do that with every resolution automatically?
Yeah, why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they allow that?
I had the same
Question.
question.
Sean?
Yeah.
Regarding this Title 39 thing that we threw in there, why don't we just do that with every resolution? Just have it automatic.
We should.
The police don't already have rights to?
No, I don't know. Well,
It's called Title 39 of the Motor Vehicle Code. It says that you could, a private property owner has to sign to agree to allow the police to enforce traffic safety regulations on private property.
So for example, so if you're in
But
front
that's
of
more
Gourmet,
routine, right?
if you're in front of like Gourmet Glatt and there's stop signs, if they don't have the Title 39, if you ever get a ticket,
You can run that.
you can fight that if they don't have the Title 39, if the officer does not have the right to.
You know they're good attorneys?
I would ask Mr. Bowden to review letters, if you could remember it, and I'll make it a standard condition in all resolutions.
We have to have a sign there, you're on the Title 39.
Mr. Chairman, I have, on the correspondence, I have 3 items that all probably take about 30 seconds, and we can get rid of them.
Together?
Well, I can probably do 30 seconds, all 3 of them, because 2 of them are combined. If I can, just real quickly.
Okay.
So on SD 2208, Prospect Street Holdings LLC, there was a correction to existing approval term. This was termed a major subdivision, where actually it's only a minor subdivision, and we're just asking to change that, probably to reflect that it's actually a minor, not a major.
Originally, it was a major, and the board would approve as many lots as they wanted, so over the public hearings, the number of units was reduced, and as a result, it's actually a minor subdivision, it's kind of just an oversight.
So why is that even coming back?
What are the implications of
I
that?
thi- It has to do with the deadline for filing, 95 days from the signing signature of the
And the major issue is you get beat up at the county planning board if you're a major.
Harry, are you okay with it?
Where you don't get beat up.
Well, why does it have to come back here?
It affects the bonding time.
Because the application was submitted, it said major, and then it got whittled down to where it became a minor. When the resolution got done, it said major, it should say minor.
Okay, do we have a motion to go along with that? Mr. Flansman moves.
A second.
Who was that?
Mr. Isaacson.
Mr. Isaacson seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next two we'll do together. SD 2007 Times Square Holdings LLC and SD 2008 Berkshire Investment Holdings LLC. The reason I say I'm doing them together, even though there are two applicants, two separate applications, that we appeared before the board of two separate applications, because they're next door to each other, the board kind of made us do the applications together. After getting approval for a combined 40, for how many units we have originally?
We had 45 originally.
45 lots, which this board approved. The NJDEP, after doing some research on the property, knocked this down, and so we now have a total of.
This should come back.
We lost 14.
We lost 14 lots. Other than that, we're just shrinking the amount of units on it. Nothing else changed on the application.
Yeah, lot width,
No. You can see, I mixed them up. But above and below, it's the same application. It's just the lots in the back. It used to have lots all the way down here. The DEP said, no, you can't build here.
so nothing changed on any of the width of any of the lots?
No.
The whole lot's the same, we still accept, we're not building, we're not putting the same units.
These are
in
the
this
ones
wall.
where the board said you don't need to do a shul, but you're right next to each other, do one, and the applicant agreed to do a shul up on the front lot, one shul for the two of them. It's the same shul. After Capra, we're looking for 13 units and a shul on the one, and then the other one above it, 18. So it all looks the same. What's different is the blue areas in the back. Now there's going to be no development on it.
What is it, vacant area, it stays?
Vacant areas, it gets donated to the township and the birds and the snakes and the turtles.
That really bothers me.
Two different applications.
Yeah, one's under the, that should be under there.
Sometimes they do that, this time I.
Do we have a motion to go along?
So I just want to make sure, on the one on the right, and talk, yeah, what, did anything change? Look, the lots look different now.
No.
These are the same lots, that got down here. This cul-de-sac moved into here, to leave that spot open. And the same thing here, it was lots all the way down. These lots got chopped off, and now that's gonna be open.
On the one on the right, on the cul-de-sac just moved down and you lost.
Yes.
You lost the lot.
I'm personally comfortable with this one I'm not so sure about, because the whole geometry of the road's different, the geometry of the lots are different, there's other properties around it, they might, think the road's here, as opposed to being back here, right?
The property that's around this one is this one down here.
Oh, those are.
That's right underneath.
They're next door to each other,
Right
that's why
underneath.
we.
And this is Route 9, and
Where's the before of them?
this is the before.
So have this right next to it.
You're pointing to the wrong one, what are your left?
No, the one on the left.
This lies right in this.
The puzzle.
No, it is one.
Okay.
All right, so,
Okay.
my recommendation is that the one with the cul-de-sac, I think that's a lot different. The one where you're just not developing the back.
It went all the way through resolution compliance before the board engineer even caught it as something that needed to come back to the board. It got to the township engineer for signature on the plat, and he was like, wait a minute, these don't look like what the resolution says.
Again,
I think Terry's office was apprised of these changes all along, and was satisfied with them, but on
We didn't agree with
technicality.
variances.
Okay, so let me see how the board wants to. Let's first do the first one. Which application is that?
Well, give me the name of that one, Brian.
Actually, bigger.
Block, it's lot 15.
The version, SB 2008.
What happens to that, vacant area in the back?
Donated to the town, dedicated to the town.
Does that have any kind of conservation easement on it? Why do you have to say no?
Dedicated to the township.
Yes.
What's the township supposed to do with it?
Does it have a encumbered by environmental constraints? For both.
Yes, there's a conservation.
So it'll be woods.
Yes, it'll be woods, undisturbed.
Yeah, so that one I don't have an issue with, they're just not.
That's the 2008 first year investment plan.
Do I have a motion to go along with 2008? Moved, Mr. Isaacson?
Second.
Mr. Meyer, second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, I think 2007.
2007.
Brian,
Does
can
the
you
board-
just explain, I guess the question is, if we're shortening the cul-de-sac, did we create any changes to the, I guess, to the end lots?
But the end lots is the same cul-de-sac. What we did is we eliminated some of these and split the whole thing back, but because they wanted this weird shape to it, the geometry of some of them changed a little, but you can see, this duplex was pretty similar to that one, this duplex was pretty similar to that one, and then this one over here, instead of being wider like that, is curved.
And Brian, first of all,
Why did they want that weird shape in the?
Well, we got into this situation because Marshall Weissman had owned both of these properties and some other property 20 years ago in the same name. So they said that's common
I was
ownership.
gonna ask you why you sent it to Catherine, you only.
Right. We didn't think we were subject to CAFR either, but they looked back through the records and said, oh, there was common ownership by one of Marshall's companies on all these two and another one.
So to
They
get
said,
out
we
of,
got it.
so to get out of CAFRA,
Well, no, then we had to get a CAFR permit. If Marshall hadn't done that, they would have been, the houses would have been built already.
okay, and CAFRA does not allow you.
First approved, does this change any, like stormwater management regulations, when was this first approved?
Maybe 15, 16,
March 17th, 2015.
Have any zoning for, stormwater management, environmental regulations?
Well, just by going to CAFRA, we put in a bigger stormwater management system, and spent more money than what was approved by the board.
They changed, the regulations changed.
Mr. Jackson.
It's the
I
way,
think this is more than just a coming to.
Yeah, I think that's a whole.
There were new
The whole
DEP
thing.
regulations after this year.
Yeah, that's what I agree, I think this is
I don't like
this
the
is times and the public should get a shot at it. The first one, they're just not building lots in the back and everything's basically the same. This one, I think.
Justin, what's your lot size
changes? Definitely.
There are lot size changes?
Looks
No.
like it shifted. It looks like it.
but the no new variances, the.
No, the lot
lots-
size changed.
The lots around the cul-de-sac, got tweaked.
Yeah, you look at this lot.
Are they smaller? Yeah, look at that line, yeah.
I think we should come back to this one.
And we're coming back, just so it's clear, coming back for.
I think we should come.
Or, what, is there such a thing as an amendment to your subdivision?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's what it is. Amended final, major subdivision. We're just amending your previous approval.
I mean.
Yeah, tell us, we to state for the record here that we're not creating the variances, it's less lots.
But why is this not different than anyone that comes in with a change that's not creating any variances? So.
Okay. We had said that
Because it's late, just come with.
No, 1 second, but what does it entail? If you have to get amended site plan, I want to make, what does that entail?
Okay, so then it's gonna be, a copy of the paperwork before Mark amended. Maybe
And
update on the forms that are.
Is that a tremendous expense? Is that a tremendous?
50% of the application of the escrow concern the board. And escrow concern is not used, application fees are flat $250 every fee per amended, so it's really not that much in terms of fees. They do have to go to another public hearing, since it's a major, they'll need to provide notice. We need to open to the public, they need to have a resolution.
So what's the total, we're talking about a total cost of,
$1,000 probably.
I go by the hey, wait. Somebody saw the first one was built, and they look at the other one, and say, hey, wait a minute, how did all this happen?
I mean, it doesn't sound like it's a tremendous.
Well, it's gonna be 3 months.
used to say
So
that.
the applicant, because somebody owned the property 15 years ago, the applicant already lost 8 lots, and now he's gonna lose another 3 months. When I do the gateway, only people looking at it from Route 9, they're not gonna see any difference. Somebody that drives in, he sees 3 houses at the end of the cul-de-sac, he would see 3 houses at the end of that cul-de-sac.
Brian, can you run through the total lot sizes of those 6 lots on the cul-de-sac at the end? Tell me top and bottom.
Well, before I do that, we've had an opportunity to review.
Why do that?
Why is Brian?
I'll make a motion to move it to next one.
The next meeting.
So what does that mean? Move the
We're not-
correspondence?
Yeah, to have it amended.
To talk about the correspondence at the next meeting.
No, but I think it should be as amended.
Well, then they need new application and it needs to be scheduled regularly, you can't just throw it on.
I just want to see, I want to see the whole plan, see any sidewalks, anything changes, any
Can
drainage.
I ask this then, go to amend it, if we can move this item to the next correspondence, the next meeting, we will provide, all that information to the board.
I would like you to provide it to Terry to make sure that nothing changes.
Gary's already reviewed.
That's what I was trying to get.
And
Oh, you already
the
said?
resolution compliance.
Terry's on that.
The issue of whether the board feels that this is a substantive change enough to be heard. That's not a thing.
To me, it's a major change.
I don't think it's a major change. I think there's lot size differences between what was proposed originally and what is now. I would like to see those.
Okay.
And I can give you that for the next meeting, these lots are bigger than these are.
Okay.
The
so we
the
don't
new
have-
ones are bigger?
The new ones are bigger.
Okay, so come back, so come back by correspondence.
That's
and explain.
correspondence,
Yes, and I'll detail the
The
variance
change.
on
Can
size.
you provide
like
Yeah.
A map, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And who else is here tonight?
Adam,
Which
the
one?
the one you're coming back for is 2008?
The one going back from 2007, Times Square.
2007.
Which ones do you have?
I just have the number 1 correspondence from Mr. Abadi.
Okay. You can do it in 30 seconds like Adam did it? In 30 seconds?
Wait, Adam's 30 seconds, yes, I can do that. Or John's 60 seconds. Or John's 60 seconds from earlier today.
You guys gotta take it. I told you to.
This is a minor subdivision approved by the board. We have essentially just a clarification from the resolution. We had a surveyor, when the surveyor surveyed the property, specifically this mark here, we had approximately about 2 feet larger than what was actually there. We noticed after we got some more information from the county on Miller Road. The lot lines around the edge next to the adjacent properties, all remain exactly the same.
Did you notice it tonight? Was it noticed to the neighbors?
That we didn't see that.
No notice in terms of.
What?
So what?
Mr. Johnson, what are you running?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying
He's
to
answering
my
questions.
I apologize.
So what had happened was the resolution doesn't specifically state what the lot size is for this lot. It said it should be slightly larger than 10,000 square feet.
Are you making it smaller than what was originally approved?
We're making it smaller, was on the original plan, by 260 square feet.
So why did it not have to come back? Why is correspondence?
Because the resolution specifically states that that lot was slightly more than 10,000 square feet, and it's still slightly more than 10,000.
Well, they're not making smaller lots, it's just as it turns out they were a little smaller. I don't know if it was a
Correct.
surveying error or drafting
It was a
error.
surveying error. We're not making
They're
it
not
small.
changing the lot.
Still
it's just-
3 lots, 4 setbacks,
For whatever reason, their data is being made more precise. But what you looked at is what they approved. It's just.
Correct. What you approve is that. What we're proposing is that.
It's identical, just the numbers.
The only slight difference is we have to tilt this line, and the numbers work. That's it.
Okay. We have a motion.
The front setback here,
Okay.
is 29.85.
Okay. Mr. Plaza moves it. Do you have a second?
Want to make sure it's all on the record, we don't have to come back.
All in favor? Aye.
Yeah, 15 seconds, right.
Thank you.
Faster. Oh, all right, this is the one we said.
Which one?
First, we'd like to have a pool to the board's campus in a site plan. The pool is not going to be used use for any outsiders, use just for the school in the day camp in the summer on the campus.
Are you creating any new variances by putting both?
No. We have to look at the plot plan, we meet all the requirements, we're just putting put a pool for the day camp in the summer in the back.
Is it being rented out? It's not being rented out.
It's not because for the day camp on site, just for their.
How is the decision being made if these things come to correspondence?
The board has done pools for schools as correspondence in the past. Oftentimes the board has agreed that to require a site plan approval for pools and facilities. Applicants usually submit to the engineering or submit plot plans for a pool, and then our shop, if they need, some sort of board approval. So because it's not a single family residential lot, the engineer can just approve it.
Alex, you want to take a harder look on correspondence. We're getting too many, and with too many things to decide in 30 seconds.
It's difficult when you have correspondence that's put on, and then everyone else is like, well, that correspondence is on.
Can we take correspondence over the agenda? No, well, you're abusing it.
Pool's always, pool is a pool. It's not private.
I know you just want a pool, but correspondence is being abused, tonight for sure. Every single one.
And, you know, a pool could be significant in a certain context, or it could be meaningless. And it's hard for us to understand what you do in correspondence. And
anybody knows for a school, which you may be aware of on Oak Street, in the back right corner, it's totally facing nobody, it's all wooded, there's nothing there, and it's a pool.
There's no neighbors over there?
Nobody's
But Mr. Herzl, I'm hearing you. You're saying that you want amended site plans to come back as amended site
He's here
plans?
tonight already, but people are coming for future.
I was a strong arm to putting the Wawa on correspondence, and then all of these were like, well, that's on correspondence, why can't I?
Who's strong armed you? The Wawa.
How would it be?
Okay, the Wawa was also, I think, there's significant changes over
Oh,
there.
do you? I apologize, because I thought that was a minor
I
one.
think you're changing roads, the lot lines were shifting over. I don't think it should be done in correspondence. Okay.
Are we okay with a pool?
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Herzl, maybe we can,
I think that things like this should at least be noticed also.
Mr. Herzl, maybe what we can do, and this is work for you, but maybe we can get your approval for amended correspondence.
I'm here every Tuesday, right, to really have it.
You know, maybe that's it. It has to
You're
be.
here for tech meetings, I don't mind meeting.
And then when I tell people no, and they tell me yes.
And then I get the blame for it.
Universal agrees,
Yeah,
and
Well,
I say no.
maybe what we could do also
I'll
is
make
have
sure that
a
meeting.
short portion of our meeting without any badgering from anyone. Just internal board discussion, can it be on for correspondence or not? And if it can be, then it goes to correspondence.
Okay, I agree.
But this way, you're not getting worked.
I agree. I think that, like Mr. Renner is saying, it's being abused. Everybody's coming by correspondence to circumvent the full meeting, and we don't get to hear the whole application.
So we'll work on that. What we'll try to do is we'll try to screen them to begin with, and then we can put on a calendar, and the board just internally can decide, okay, that's green light or not green light for correspondence.
Okay, so what do we do with this one?
Well, you know, with the pool, is it just for the school?
Just for the school, for the day camp.
That'll be a condition?
It's absolutely a condition.
And there's no surrounding neighbors, your testimony.
Fully wooded, totally. We have to go by plot plan, we have to do engineering anyway. We're not looking for any waiver for anything from that. We're not looking for any waivers, we just would like the board's approval to be able to put the pool there.
So I'll, as a school, I would go along with it, but I think in the future we have to think about it, not to use it. Would anybody want to make a recommendation?
Almost like someone coming, I'm gonna go along with this now, but I just want to explain to you what this is like. It's like when you were sitting here and someone comes here and says, I'm gonna come here and make an addition to a school, and it's gonna be fully conforming, I promise you, it's gonna be fully conforming. I'm just gonna make this more.
I'm not gonna do this again for those correspondence.
Pool's not an addition.
I'd rather not be
Every single one
here.
to tell them no, and they.
I'm not gonna do this.
Okay, so Al, you heard the whole board's,
There's no reason why there should be 7 correspondence items.
Can I give you an example though, and I know this is our job, but you know how the last one was the subdivision, how you said no 3 times and then they kept saying and then okay, that's what we get.
Well, I mean, with the last one, either we can do the correspondence or not. If we're doing the correspondence, why don't we just do it tonight? What are they gonna tell us next time if they didn't tell us tonight?
The one before, the application before was denied, and he came back and he tweaked it. There were a lot of neighbors who were upset about it. And that's why I asked if it was the same plan that we approved. No neighbors came out, and I asked her, it was noticed. It may have, it was not noticed, because it was a correspondence. But if the neighbors were upset last time, maybe they should have noticed it.
John has said in the past, and I know sometimes it changes, but in the past, what I recall is he said, required, then it shouldn't be corresponded, because
Okay.
that's significant.
Okay, anytime you're making a change to a plan, which neighbors were upset about it, should be noticed.
And should be an amended application.
And it should be amended. Okay,
There's a paper street over there behind the pool. Eventually it's gonna be developed. Can we put a fence? a big
Absolutely,
8-foot
it
fence?
is being put in
Not a
100%.
safety fence.
No, a real.
Okay, no, it's a story, no, it's a story.
Let's put it in a condition, let's put it in a condition.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fencing.
Okay, do we have a motion to go along with this one?
Now finding out that the street and the fence going in. Now,
A fence, we don't need to come to the board for a fence.
We've had pools come in like a backyard before, I don't know, it is technically.
We kept that any front setback, we're not any front setback, we keep far away from the road.
But it is facing would be a street.
It will be, sure. But we kept it out of the front yard setback, so we're not in any setbacks, and every pool that goes in.
Did we get plans at least?
Did
we get our own plans?
They dropped them
We
off
dropped
today,
them
they're
off.
not on your
We
plan.
gave them a plan.
Oh, they are?
Yeah,
They were dropped off at like.
Do we have an,
Should we take a look?
is anybody here as 2010, SV 2000, is that you too? Jacob Lister?
This is us, yeah. This is a clarification of the previous.
Yes.
And we had to put the sidewalk in.
Just put the sidewalk in.
And no curb, is that okay? We're putting the sidewalk back, 1 foot out off the, 1 foot off the property.
why do
line.
you want to not put in curb?
It's a state highway, the state wants to leave it as is.
Curb is a safety issue.
The state wants to leave it without curb? Putting a sidewalk on a highway, you gotta put a curb there.
It's 11 feet off the pavement, off the pavement.
You doing it on your property?
Right on the beginning of the right of way, 1 foot up the right of way.
Terry, are you okay with it without the curb?
You can't give a design waiver.
This is a state highway, I can't speak for the state.
John says the design waiver needs notice.
Hey, let's see a letter from the state saying that they don't want curb.
I have, we gave,
Help me out.
we sent it
I
away.
didn't think a design waiver, the board can't give a design waiver on correspondence without
That's the red line.
No problem, we will notice, we will gladly notice and come back.
Notice, come back to correspondence.
Here's the big here. Here's the bill. Where's my pool?
I'm just, we can't do this.
We will gladly get notice and come back.
This is the curb. No, there's nothing.
No, listen, go ahead.
Where's the pool? Oh, this is the pool.
Here's Oak Street, here's Mr. Bora, that's the back right, there's the back here.
What's in the street?
Is it Vermont or Malvern?
Wood.
No, I think they should come in. Mr. Herzl, I make a recommendation that they come back with an amended plan to do this on correspondence. I could tell the whole board's uncomfortable, you have a lot of questions.
Because all I know.
Unless they eat food over here, we don't know.
Guys, just for this whole thing, this is turning into a little bit of.
My recommendation is that they make an amended application to come in.
They already came back on a correspondence once and they alluded to what waivers they were looking for.
Do we need, how, do you know what's going on?
On this site,
On with the sidewalks, with the pool, with everything, you know?
the pool's a different site from the current site.
I know that.
Okay.
But there are questions that board members are asking, we don't have answers to them.
I think that's why you need to vet it, why you need someone stand there at the board and explain it to you when you have time, it's not, not.
An aerial view, please.
Especially for the other one, for Oak Street, I sent you an aerial view for the other one.
Because it's not a lot line.
Paper streets.
It's our pleasure, for Oak Street, I already gave her an aerial view.
Terry's tired. Can I say something? I have a lot of cases in towns like Bay Head and Point Pleasant where the whole application is on pool. And the board goes scrutinizes it. How far is it from the building, for safety issues, lighting? It's.
Live lectures and.
There's a lot to it, especially on a commercial site. I don't know if it's up to just.
Wait, and they have a whole hearing on the color of the front door.
Yes.
There's no joke.
I think we pride ourselves in being members of the public.
So, I'm just, my point is, the pool on small lots, there's the line, I have a lot of
It's a very, very large lot.
We have to move over a lot line for 1 foot, it didn't change anything to the plan, you didn't add anything to the plan. Once you start adding to the plan, I think it's an amendment.
I'm sorry about the Wawa thing, because I first said that now.
Here, it was okay because the county is and I know, that's why I asked them on the record if the county is okay with that design. And they said yes, they said. Okay, we need approval of bills. All moved.
what? Yeah, we adjourn. Okay, so, Mr. Jackson, just announce it, we're making an amendment on both applications. Just announce it.
And decide if you want us to give notice, correct? And come back.
Well, you're gonna have to decide if it needs notice, and
We're happy to notice, we're happy to notice. No problem.
There's a paper street over here that could be developed, and there's a surrounding people living in the areas that it has to be.
We're happy to notice on both, no problem. Can we come back on the correspondence?
But that's okay, you're off Route 9, you're off Route 9, on the one we want to not put curbing, so, I don't know how safe that is. How safe is it not to have curbing?
Would you consider that a substantial change that needs an amended application, or can they notice and come back with correspondence to the question?
That's the question, come back and have a follow-up.
They signed up for the car, what's out there today, they signed up for it. They want what's there today. We have a full sign up on the things.
I thought what the DEP approved was a revised plan without curb and sidewalk, not what the DEP said, we don't want curb and sidewalk. That's the
DOT. They said what's there today is fully approved. That's what they want there, what's there today. We can go back and, I can go back and do approval.
It's not like you proposed curb and sidewalk and they said no.
No, of course not, of course not. But we have a sign up for what's there.
probably actually, make it.
Can we approve the minutes before you
We
do
gotta
that?
close the minutes.
Well, let's make it amended, the plan. Can we, make a motion to, do whatever we have to do?
Do we approve the minutes?
Yes.
Mr. Herzl,
I abstained on the last one.
Yes, you did.
no, we didn't.
Yeah, approval of minutes?
I abstained.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Those opposed, none.
Thank you.
With that, motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Maybe 1 second.
Okay, 1 second.
I motion to adjourn. To keep care of it.
I'll make a motion to extend Remington for.
To the end of the year. A second. We all second, all in favor? Aye.
Welcome, very good.
That
was safe, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, I appreciate it.
You adjourn?
Yes.
Subdivision, it's only a minor, it's only a minor subdivision. Thank you, I appreciate it, I spent enough time here.
At some point, it just gets me.
Yeah. No, I realized that late,
I was killing them. I was killing them. We're trying not to put them on. I'm like, this is.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, we'll try to.
Well, I actually heard most of them in my corner, I was like, I realized I missed out of town with the original application, Yeshiva on New Hampshire and Cherokee. It's a massive problem, it's like a school bus. No, it's a problem, because not just buses, you have cars all day, and that's the worst accident in the whole Lakewood. So instead of saying, hold on, we have to stop what we have already and figure out a plan. They won't allow me to talk, I missed the original application, the application was approved already. This is the problem, I want to know how to go about this. There's a way to appeal, because this is, lives are on the line. It's a problem, because I drive the whole, you know that, I'm sure you get here. It's the worst corner of Lakewood, so it's going to be, not just there, you're gonna make it worse. I feel that she doesn't make life not valuable, because she should.
But you don't see it bringing it out anymore. What time? I usually come around 12 o'clock. And Terry's there.
And you think they're gonna come around?
If they're not there, we can make a conference.
Put what?
10 minutes.
Oh, you can Yeah, but I'm taking a left into there. From New Hampshire, taking a left into there. All day, the guns go get screws up traffic, people get accidents. But the problem is, Jeff, the problem, county says, Lakewood, I believe county. County says, whatever Lakewood decides, we don't decide land use. That's what the county says. I've been there, I've been in the county. So if you guys say it's okay, they're not gonna argue. They can see how to make it work.
We don't usually correspond to that, why it's just a fluke month.
Well, don't say yes. The chairman has to
I don't.
approve everything. Well, don't put it on the calendar.
I don't, I tell them they need your approval, then they come back and say, John Jackson said it's fine.
Well, we have.
So put it on the board. Need approval, was approved before you said it's not
Can I ask you, can you shoot an email to Ally that you approve this?
It's not John's fault.
If they want
It's
to
come
put
to
it
John's
right,
way.
and you submit it to the
No,
board.
we just want their approval, and
But Dr.
then
doesn't
she'll
put
go
the-
there and she's gonna go, the board's not gonna care, so like, yeah, that would be quick. And then it could come.
And then they come Ally,
They need to
they come
actually-
to John, Ally says it's okay, or Terry says it's okay, and they go, you know.
But there's a delicate balance too.
Alex, first we being right, board, it's still submitted to the board. So I don't know, why she correspondence?
Is that anything wrong?
The-
Or are we still like
that's-
broadcasting on the podcast?
The whole world, I think it should do correspondence, and like force them to put a reason why she corresponds, instead of, so that she's not forced to give answers.
Well, it is, I used to give correspondence